Ted Briggs is 19 years old. He's standing on the platform of HMS Hood. He's watching Bismarck through binoculars as Hood turns to port. A German shell is already in the air. Ted never hears it. He sees a flash near the mast. The deck beneath him lifts. There's a roar, not like a gun, more like a thrash. Just under 3 minutes later, Ted Briggs is in the water. He is one of just 3 survivors. 1,415 men are dead. It is just such an amazing story. Yeah. It is completely brilliant. There's a reason why people obsess about the Hood and the Bismarck. These were naval giants.
Yeah.
You know, they're incredibly beautiful, deadly, a kind of manifestation of modernity. And enormity, and a sort of clash in the icy seas of the Northern Atlantic, and then a bit further south in the more southern, central Atlantic. In late May 1941, you know, the peaks and the troughs of things that the characters. Oh God, it's
also the end of an era, isn't it? The big fleet encounters that the Royal Navy has during the Second World War tend to be in the Mediterranean. There aren't those big capital ship encounters in the Atlantic. And this is kind of it. The Royal Navy has changed its attitude. It knows it can't have big fleet encounters. That's a thing of the past. The balance is shifting to air.
Yep.
But the Kriegsmarine, along the way, has tried to, you know, with Plan Z, had tried to come up with having a big surface fleet that would cause all sorts of problems. And it's kept people awake at night at Admiralty, the fruits of Plan Z, even though they haven't actually come to fruition. There's the Bismarck, really, the Prinz Eugen, the Scharnhorst, the Tirpitz. These names, I think, even now,
they live on.
It's a handful of ships.
There's something about the majesty and enormity of these huge battleships, these huge capital ships, and then them being sunk.
Yeah.
And then them being discovered sort of, 60, 70 years later on the ocean floor. That's sort of tragic, magnificent, romantic, kind of awful, all thrown into one. And I've just come completely obsessed with this. It was a story I was familiar with, but not in detail. Yeah. I'm all for Navy. I've said it.
On the 20th of May, 1941, a phone rings in the flat of Captain Henry Denham, RN, in his flat in Riddergarten in Stockholm. The British Embassy's on the line, and he's summoned to the embassy right away. And a man called Colonel Roger Lund has arrived to see him. Now, Denham's the naval attaché to Norway. He escapes. He's posted straight to Sweden via Narvik. So he's the Scandinavian expert. And this couldn't be a more important job, actually, for keeping tabs on the Kriegsmarine. So he gets there via Narvik, the North Cape and Finland, and he's been in Sweden ever since, which is, of course, neutral, but that means it's a den of spying, of information transfer, of the rules being bent, because the Swedes, after all, start off pretty scrupulously neutral, but as the tide turns, realise that may be not the best situation to be in at the end of the war. But we're not there yet, of course.
Yes, the Swedish tree starts leaning towards the Allies, doesn't it?
But not yet. But not yet. This is a place that is plastic and malleable, and where you can talk to military attachés and pass on information. So Lund is the military attaché from the exiled Norwegian government, and he's a friend of Denham's. He's a pal.
Mm-hmm.
Very reliable, great contacts, including Colonel Pettersson, who's head of the Swedish Secret Service, but they're neutral, Jim. Anyway.
Useful contact.
And this is the first time that Lund has called for a special meeting. And he's got info from Peterson, who's known as P. It's not the tightest code, let's be honest now.
Anyway, so he heads over to the embassy, doesn't he? And Roger Lund shows him a message from P's office.
It's uncrackable.
I wonder who that could be. That it's uncrackable. That 2 German warships were at sea with escorts. And Denham's initially a bit sceptical about this, but drafts a telegram to the Admiralty, most immediate, graded B3, and within an hour this is put into cipher and is on his way to London.
Yeah.
And the message is this: Kattegat today, 20th May at 1500, 2 large warships escorted by 3 destroyers, 5 escort vessels, 10 or 12 aircraft passed Marstrand course northwest. 20:58:20. So that's nearly 9 o'clock. This is, of course, the two warships. This is the mighty Bismarck, the only battleship the Germans have.
Yep.
They've got pocket battleships. We're not going to get into that. But this is the only battleship they've got that is currently available and seaworthy and ready for operations. And the Prince Eugen, which is a cruiser, and they are on their way for part of Operation Rheinübung, which is a plan to break out through the North Sea into the Northern Atlantic, and there go on a merry spree, absolutely pulverizing merchant vessels, plying their trade for the Allies across the Atlantic. That is the aim of it. And so, why is this such big news? Well, it's because Bismarck's the biggest battleship in the world in May 1940, and if it can be allowed to get into the Atlantic, then it could potentially run absolutely amok.
Yeah, I mean it's the sum of the Admiralty's fears, isn't it? Surface vessel raiding, and we've talked about the business of submarine warfare being only so efficient, and in fact actually not meeting even Dernitz's poor expectations, unrealistic expectations is the truth.
Well, his grab from nowhere 500,000 tons a month.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're a battleship that can shell things standing off, this is something to be worried about. As small and as the Kriegsmarine's actual surface fleet is, and as unique as the Bismarck is, as the biggest battleship in the world, and their only battleship that's serviceable, this is a big deal. This is something to be worried about, isn't it?
And as we discussed in our Atlantic War series, back in January 1941, just a quick reminder, Scharnhorst and Gneisenau had broken the British blockade. Yeah. And, these are battle cruisers. So battleship level firepower, but less armor, which means they're lighter and fast. And that's fine because that is their role. Their role is not to engage British warships. Their role is to blast small escorts for convoys and then the convoy itself. Yeah. And of course, a battleship or a battle cruiser with all its firepower can make short work of a convoy.
Yeah,
I mean, really can absolutely obliterate it.
Yeah.
So these battle cruisers are a blend of battleship guns with cruisers. They'd broken out through the Faroes Iceland gap. So you've got the Faroe Islands to the north of Scotland, then you've got Iceland. And so you're coming through the North Sea, kind of off the coast of you're coming out of the Baltic, along the coast of Norway, up to the top of Norway, across into sort of almost into the North Cape, and then down into the Atlantic that way. They scarper after being spotted by the Royal Navy cruiser Naiad. Then they refuel from a waiting tanker before using the mists of the Northern Atlantic to break into the Atlantic through the Denmark Straits, which is the bit between Greenland and Iceland. It's this comparatively narrow channel between the ice pack and Iceland itself, known as the Denmark Straits. And it's up to, 50, 30 miles and narrowing to sort of, 10 to 15 miles at places. So this is your route into the Atlantic. Commanding this trip, this little sort of Seekampf grouper, this sort of battle group of the Gneisenau and the Scharnhorst was Admiral Lütjens, who signalled, "German battleships have today succeeded in breaking through the British blockade. We shall now go forward to success." And they then spent 2 months at sea and sank 116,000 tons of Allied shipping before then beetling off to Brest.
That's still only 50, 60,000 tons a month. That's not a bonanza, is it? Let's be honest now.
No, it's not. From a British point of view, you still don't want them sinking even.
You still don't want that happening. But this points to how actually weak the Kriegsmarine is. They're not big enough to go out and mix it in the North Atlantic for any prolonged period of time. They haven't got the infrastructure. They haven't got the supply system. When we think of the US Navy, the Pacific War, the following year, operating thousands and thousands and thousands of miles from its bases and in a sort of self-sustaining rolling supply fleet system, they're miles off. If the Royal Navy is about part of its power is about its prestige, we're on this territory, aren't we?
The potential kind of damage these Kriegsmarine surface ships can do, which is winding up the British and getting them in a kind of hot funk. And I think it's the prospect of more than the Scharnhorst and Gneisenau.
Yeah.
Because what you find with these is a lone cruiser can cause X amount of damage. 2 can do double what 1 can do. 4 or 5 or half a dozen can do substantially more than what they can do individually. Collectively, they definitely add up to more than the sum of their individual parts. So the plan is for all four to work together. So the Scharnhorst and the Gneisenau and the brand new heavy cruiser, the Prinz Eugen, and of course the mighty Bismarck. The plan is for them to all work together, collectively add up to more than the sum of their individual parts, and wreak havoc on Allied shipping in the Atlantic. That is the plan.
Right. So before we get to the execution of that plan, we need to look at the Apfel in the Kriegsmarine's Augen, which is, which is, of course, the mighty, fabled Bismarck. Well, we've been talking a lot about the Bismarck, or referring to her a great deal, but let's have a proper look at this ship, launched on Valentine's Day 1939.
Lütjens, Admiral Lütjens, who is the commander of this surface fleet, or surface force, I should say, is really excited about the possibilities. The Scharnhorst and the Gneisenau is just the starter. It's the amuse-bouche of potentially what they can do once they start bringing in the Bismarck and the Prinz Eugen. Yeah. And waiting in the winds, of course, is the second battleship, which is still not ready, which is the Tirpitz. Yeah. Put them all together, then, crikey, just think what we could achieve. And it's that threat that is really starting to play on the nerves of the British. So the British think, well, anytime someone breaks out into the Atlantic, we need to go and stop them. And we need to use this opportunity to throw everything at it to make sure we sink them and stop them from ever doing it again. Because it's actually very hard to hit these things in fjords, or very hard to hit them when they're in port, actually, because they're so well defended by anti-aircraft defenses and all the rest of it. But meeting them out in the oceans when we can bring to bear greater numbers of warships, that's our opportunity. So every time they kind of break out, A, they're affronted by the fact that they've managed to break through the British blockade. B, it's a missed opportunity to sink them there in the Atlantic while they've got the chance. But of course, the Atlantic is an absolutely vast place, and it's incredibly difficult to catch them. So you need to catch them when you can, and that's basically early, when they're confined into comparatively narrow seas like the North Sea, or specifically the Denmark Straits. So, from the British point of view, they've got to react quickly. From the German point of view, they've got to avoid taking on the British fleets, which are superior in numbers and firepower, at all costs, so that they can do what they're supposed to do, which is wreak havoc on Allied convoys. But there is, of course, a massive flaw in all this, that you've got to get to the killing grounds, and you've got to get back from the killing grounds, i.e. the middle of the Atlantic where the convoys are, in one piece. And that's the challenge. Every time the Germans try and do something, coordinate this, something goes wrong, and it goes wrong again, because, the Bismarck and the Prinz Eugen have to break free out of the Baltic, which is where they are at the moment, to get out into the Atlantic. Then they need to use Brittany as an Atlantic base. And if all four can work together, then they can hammer Allied shipping. But they've got to get to the position where all four are functioning, not in repair docks, and are together. And that's quite a challenge.
As if the Royal Navy are just going to let them do any of this. It's such a heavy pinch of wishful thinking in all this. As if the Royal Navy go, you carry on, don't worry about it. Of course we're going to let you operate out of Brest. And, the fantastical element to the German naval plan. The thinking's pretty half-baked, isn't it?
It is, but just think about how many resources the Royal Navy chuck at trying to destroy the Tirpitz before the end of the war. And the Tirpitz never really does anything.
Yeah, I know.
It's just the fact that it exists is holding down vast amounts of British air and naval resources.
The Bismarck herself, then. She's built by Blom und Voss in Hamburg, and she's launched on St. Valentine's Day 1939. Like everything, she's for public consumption, political public consumption. The Nazis declare the launch a state occasion. You've got Hitler, Raeder, Keitel, Goering, Goebbels, Hess, Himmler. I mean, your full pack of cards here. Hess, Himmler, Bormann, Ribbentrop. There's bands, there's flags, there's speeches. Dorothea von Löwenfeld, Bismarck's granddaughter, christens the ship. So she's wrapped up in symbolism, like everything the Nazis are doing. She's a propaganda statement as much as a piece of military hardware. She's a sixth of a mile long. I mean, this vast. 120 feet wide.
Which, incidentally, was pretty much the same length as the Queen Mary 2.
That you've just been on, of course. Although the Queen Mary 2 doesn't have 8 15-inch guns, doesn't have the 6 aircraft, doesn't have 13-inch armour of specially hardened Wotan steel on the turrets and sides.
I mean, if you want reinforced steel, you're going to call it Wotan.
Yeah, we've got to call it Wotan, exactly. And what's interesting, of course, is she's listed at 35,000 tons to comply with the London Treaty, because after all, shipbuilding between the wars, it's the equivalent of the sort of the SALT talks, the strategic arms limitations talks, because battleships are seen as the great weapon, the great deterrent weapon, the great extending, force extender, aren't they? So they're subject to treaty, and she's listed at 35,000 tons, but actually she's 42,000 tons in terms of displacement. But when tooled up and ready to go, she's 50,000 tons, which is quite the bending of the rule there. But everyone's doing it. Everyone's at it. You're just going to have to let that go. Yeah. She's not ready when she's launched in February 39.
Not remotely.
And of course, Hitler has started the war before the Kriegsmarine is anything like ready.
Well, yes, and this goes back to the kind of fatal flaw of the Z plan, which is this, we're going to create this great big surface fleet. We're going to have, we're going to have X and Y and all the rest of it. But then Hitler starts early before they've done it. So, the Kriegsmarine's strategy for the war is literally half baked. Yeah. I mean, it's just not ready. Yeah.
They then spend the next 18 months getting her going, getting her into shape, fitting her out. Yeah. She's described as an iron ant heap swarming with dockyard workmen. 12 boilers.
Yeah, it's rather good, though.
It is rather good. 12 boilers.
Yep.
4 enormous gun turrets, and of course, they're not A turret and B turret, C and D turret. No, they're Anton and Bruno, Caesar and
Anton and Bruno,
Caesar and Dora.
Kaiser.
I mean, it makes them sound like ballroom dancers. You've got Anton Dubeck and Bruno Tonioli.
What gun turret are you in? Oh, I'm in Dora.
I'm in Dora.
Oh, really? I'm in Bruno.
I'm in Bruno. Yeah. It's the Strictly judges. And she then crews up in the summer of 1940 with the war well underway and the Kriegsmarine having to adjust to a new world. Walter Lehmann is her chief engineer. Wolf Neuendorf is her navigator. Adalbert Schneider is the gunnery commander.
And then...
yeah, the captain.
Yes, Captain Ernst Lindemann, who's only 45 years old. He's very experienced. He was at the top of his class as a cadet. He's a gunnery specialist. He's a chain smoker and coffee drinker, blonde-haired, cool as a cucumber. He's taciturn. He's imperturbable, which is what you want. He's a good man in a crisis. Very sort of able, competent man. There's a reason why a 45-year-old is being entrusted with Germany's only functioning battleship and what has become the largest ship in the world, or battleship in the world.
Yeah.
The ship is handed over to his command only on the 24th of August 1940. Oh. I mean, remember that launched on the 14th of February 1939. Here we are on the 24th of August. It takes a hell of a long time. The band is playing on the quarterdeck. The Nazi ensign is run up. And Bismarck is formally commissioned into the Kriegsmarine. But she's still not ready for action because fitting out continues. And then you need crews and they need training. The average age of the crews, 21 years old. And for the vast majority of these, Bismarck is their first ship. Yeah. It just underlines, these guys are newbies at this game. Yeah. Like the Royal Navy,
it's brand new in itself, in its new iteration.
Yes, it's brand new. It's brand new. And this is a reflection of the very, very small navy that Germany had between the wars, which people like Lindemann and Lütjens and so on, and Karls and Heyer and all these people that we've mentioned in the last couple of series. Yeah. You're talking about 1,400 men, 1,500 men on a battleship like Bismarck. So it's a huge recruiting drive that has to take place. Like the Royal Navy, crew sleeps in hammocks. They eat in different messes. There's no rum ration in the Kriegsmarine, but there is a beer ration, of course. And plus the weekly issue of free cigarettes. And over the next few weeks, more and more stores are added, enough to fight battles at sea and keep a crew of, nearly 2,000 going for weeks at a time. And Bismarck only sails for the first time on the 15th of September, 1940, Battle of Britain Day. So while those battles are going across this, over London and southeast England, Bismarck is sailing out into the open waters for the first time, heading down the Elbe from dockyard for the dockyard where she was built at Hamburg. And thousands turn out to watch this. They just marvel at what they see. This absolutely enormous, elegant, deadly, seemingly impregnable warship. And someone wrote, "No German saw her without pride. No neutral or enemy without admiration. You can only gasp at the majesty of this enormous warship. Anyway, the acceptance trials are take place in Kiel Bay, and she works up to 30 knots, but inevitably some adjustments are needed. And Bismarck is then back at Hamburg in the first weeks of December for extensive adjustments. And it's not until March 1941 that Bismarck is ready to take the sea again. So, this is a hell of a long time. That's 2 years after she's launched.
Yeah.
But it's also a reflection on the newness of the Navy. That it doesn't take that long to kit out an American battleship.
No.
It takes like a few weeks.
Yeah.
But this is all new.
Yeah.
So it's all got to be learned. We've got to work out how to do it and the logistics of it and, blah, 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 blah. So they do their further trials in Kiel Bay. They're all successful. Then to the Bay of Danzig, to Gdynia, or Gottenhafen, as the Germans have renamed it, up on what is now the Polish Baltic coast. And they do extensive exercises and training, and guns are tested for the first time. Rados are catapulted off the deck to spot the shell falls, and exercises to practice mid-sea oiling and refueling. And then they're joined by the equally new cruiser, the Prince Eugen, of 14,000 tons. And the disparity, the kind of, less than half the weight of the Bismarck. If you were to see them at distance on the ocean, you wouldn't really be able to tell the difference from one to the other. Yeah. The difference, of course, is in the armour, really. That is, in terms of sort of scale of display, of length, size, width, height off the ocean, all the rest of it, that they kind of, to the naked eye, they look pretty much the same. So the Prince Eugen has 8 8-inch guns and could do 32 knots. And the captain is a classmate of Lindemann's, Captain Helmut Brinkmann. And one day they practice flooding and of the steering gear compartment, and in the Bismarck, an ordinary seaman, Hermit Bloom, was on damage control duty and jokes with the lieutenant, asking if he could disobey the orders because if the steering gear compartment was flooded, he'd be dead. And the lieutenant replies, "Quite right. So you'd better play dead. Put your caps on back to front, lie down on the deck, and everyone will know you are bodies." And after the exercise, the lieutenant says, "The chances of getting hit there are 100,000 against."
Oh, dear.
Oh! I mean, talk about commentator's curse.
I mean, that's like a thing in a sitcom, isn't it? No, that's never going to happen.
That'll never happen.
Oh, dear. Now she's basically ready. The German naval staff, they issue preparatory orders on the 2nd of April, 2 weeks after the arrival of Scharnhorst and Gneisenau at Brest. And so the next new moon period at the end of the month, Bismarck, Prince Eugen, Gneisenau are to rendezvous for a combined attack on Allied shipping in the Atlantic. So everyone's getting their battleship wet dreams into fruition. Scharnhorst has, however, got...
I am so excited, Admiral.
Exactly. Oh, Gott im Himmel. I'm frothing with excitement. Scharnhorst has...
Just think what we can do, what victories we can have on the open seas.
Exactly.
Except there's a big but here.
Yeah, Scharnhorst's got a problem with her boiler. But they've also got to avoid the Royal Navy and her warships. I mean, that's the...
Well, but also the fact that the Scharnhorst is out of action with boiler problem rather sort of, it sort of underlines the lack of wiggle room, of contingency in all their plans.
They haven't got any depth to their plans.
No depth.
Yeah. Redundancy, which is the Royal Navy, after all, is got colossal redundancy built in. Their big problem, the Kriegsmarine, is they're really vulnerable. You said the fjords of Norway and so on are well defended, but Brest sticks out like a sore thumb at the end of Brittany, and the RAF can find it.
Well, it's new as well.
It's new.
It's another new base.
Yeah, they can find it. They can hit it. The Royal Air Force, and they're relentless. Actually, 4th of April, they drop bombs on number 8 dock where Gneisenau was. Doesn't explode the bomb, but Gneisenau is moved to a mooring in the harbour. Then she's struck by RAF Coastal Command, and this is pilot officer Kenneth Campbell flying a Beaufort very, very low.
Amazing.
Despite furious flak. Yes, I discovered his story not so long ago. He gets a VC for this, doesn't he? He goes in very low through the flak, drops a torpedo, smashes the propeller shaft, floods 2 engine rooms, and puts Gneisenau out of service for 6 months. And basically, in order to strike his target, he has to fly in a way that's going to get him killed. So Campbell is unbelievably brave and gallant in that. That's an extraordinary story that people should go and look up. So now they're down to just the Bismarck and the Prince Eugen. Tirpitz is almost ready, but not quite. Such is the nature of these things. Raider could have waited But the longer you wait, of course, the harder it is not to be struck by the RAF or getting through the blockade. And the Americans might be in the war any minute, and because pressure's mounting. This actually shows that really what they've done with these battleships is they've put their head in the noose, the Germans, haven't they, in this? The 24th of April, a magnetic mine explodes 100 metres from the Prince Eugen. It's another 2 weeks of repairs. So now the earliest they could sail is the new moon.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. They're not having these problems with U-boats. But then the U-boats aren't quite delivering. And also, you build a big enough great big battleship, you're going to want to use it, right? You don't want it skulking in fjords.
Yeah, damn right you are. So Raider, who is the overall commander-in-chief of the Kriegsmarine, he wonders whether to postpone, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He kind of thinks, should we, what do we do? Wait for the Tirpitz? Not wait, what do we do? But, we've got this fleet, we've got to use them, can't just keep postponing it all the time. So he consults the fleet commander, who is Admiral Gunther Lütjens, of course. Yeah. And Lütjens is another of these sort of imperturbable types. He's 51 years old. He's lean. He's clean-shaven, cropped hair, looks completely humorless, but actually does have a kind of a little bit of a dry sense of humour. He's joined the Naval College at Kiel in 1908, passes out 20th out of a class of 160. He's in torpedo boats in the First World War, or Flanders and in the Channel. And in the summer of 1940, he deputises for Admiral Marshall as fleet commander during the Norwegian campaign. And despite losing so many ships during the Norwegian campaign, is awarded the Knight's Cross and then promoted.
Oh.
I mean, yeah. Anyway, he isn't a Nazi. He's not a Nazi party.
Okay.
He's known to kind of not really approve of the regime, and yet here he is doing Hitler's bidding and all the rest of it. So, I've always been dubious of that kind of claim.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's taciturn, austere, totally dedicated to the German Navy. And he always wears a dirk of the Imperial Navy, not a Nazi one.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that doesn't
Same difference.
So what? He's a sort of hard person to get to know, but is widely considered very competent, very able, dedicated. Only gets married at the age of 40 and now has 2 children with a third on the way.
Right.
And is very, very fatalistic about this operation. He just can't see how, they might get away with 1 mission into the Atlantic, maybe 2, but he thinks it's a bit like, the crew of the B-17 in the autumn of 1943. The odds are stacked against you, and you're going to come a cropper. They just can't continue to ride their luck against the might of the Royal Navy. So he's very sort of fatalistic.
But you got to go because you got to go because you got to go. So
because he's dedicated,
And he tells Raider to postpone until the Tirpitz is ready, but Raider thinks that they're up against it time-wise, ignores his advice. Lütjens tells his friend Admiral Conrad Patzig, who's now the head of personnel, he says, I realise that in this unequal struggle between the British Navy and ourselves, I shall sooner or later have to lose my life. But I have settled my private affairs, and I shall do my best to carry my orders with honour. You want fatalism? There it is. That's it right there.
Some of the decisions he makes in Rheinübung, Operation Rheinübung, you can see that fatalism coming into those decisions, I think.
Yeah. So he flies up to Gottenhofen with his staff. His chief of staff is Captain Harald Netzbund, who's the former captain of Gneisenau. And Rheinübung is going to start on the 18th of May. Hitler, on the 5th of May, and his staff, they go to Gdynia, to Gottenhofen, to inspect Bismarck and the Tirpitz. The Führer goes aboard the Bismarck, the crew all lined up. Hitler's piped on. You can imagine him enjoying this, can't you? Inspected the crew, then visited Lütjens' captain, although he's actually nervous about Bismarck sailing because he's worried about it, what might happen to her. Because it's classic Hitler, isn't it? Is that he wants the toys, but he doesn't want them to lose the toys,
Well, and everyone knows about the Bismarck. Everyone's heard of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is internationally famous already because of this huge battleship, this sort of expression of German military might, blah, 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 blah.
Well, we talk about the Royal Navy in terms of prestige. When you've got a tiny navy and a great big battleship, it's literally a prestige project. And you don't want any damage to that. The tangle they get themselves in because they're led not by strategic necessity or tactical thinking in Germany is quite. It's part of the endless problem, isn't it? Really, that they're never thinking straight. Use this steel for U-boats, you fools. Obviously, he's worried about torpedo-carrying aircraft. He wouldn't be as worried if Goering had been more helpful. It's all the usual all the usual Hitler natter, isn't it? If only this and if only that, and I've been let down on this. And if the Graf Zeppelin, if the aircraft carrier was finished, things would be better.
And if only the grass was just a little bit greener on the other side of the fence.
Exactly. As if the Royal Navy would just let a German aircraft carrier tool about and do what it wanted. I mean, it's the other thing. The enemy having a vote here. And Lütjens says, yes, of course, enemy aircraft are a threat, but he assures Hitler that the Bismarck has the firepower to cope. The Bismarck, she has the firepower to cope, mein Führer. Very well. On the 16th of May, 1941, sulky Hitler gets back in his train. Lütjens reports that the squadron is ready to sail from midnight to the 18th and 19th of May. Time and tide permitting, over the next 2 days, support vessels sail from French Atlantic ports and from Norway to take up waiting positions. So they're stringing out the supporting vessels like a sort of daisy chain to get them to where they need to. So there's 2 tankers in the Arctic, 2 recce ships, 2 more tankers to the Azores. Sunday, the 18th of May, Lütjens holds a final conference in his cabin with his staff officers, with Lindemann and Brinkmann. There's an operational brief from Admiral Karls of Naval Group Command North, which recommends...
Remember him?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Which recommends sailing direct from Korsfjord near Bergen, lie up for a day while the Prince Eugen refuels, and then head for Atlantic through the Faroes-Iceland Gap. And refueling is such an important part of this story, as it is to come.
Yes.
But Lütjens decides against it. He obviously thinks, no, there's no point doing that. Well, I'm going to die. He's not going to go to Korsfjord.
Well, yes, there's that, but he also knows that the key to getting into the Atlantic is to move quickly before the British can react. That's the point. The home fleet is all based up in Scapa Flow. He just wants to go under the radar, and refueling means a pause. And a pause means more chance for the British to find out.
And although he doesn't know about Henry Denham, in Stockholm, in his flat in Regan in Stockholm.
It's not rocket science to work out that someone's going to spot you.
Yeah, and especially if you're sailing the world's biggest battleship.
Through very narrow, Baltic Straits, basically, is what you're doing. I mean, why they don't sail from the Kiel Canal and go straight into the North Sea is mystifying.
Yeah.
Because then you can avoid going around the Kattegat and, round the narrow channels between Norway and Denmark.
So the Eugen leaves first. Bismarck follows on the 18th. There's a band playing him off, singing Muss ich denn, must I leave, on the quayside. They meet up with the destroyers at 11 the next day off the Baltic coast. At midday, Lütjens addresses the Bismarck's crew over the loudspeaker. I give you the hunter's toast. Good hunting and a good bag. This is your captain out.
I'm feeling inspired.
And she sets sail. Jim, I don't know about you, but I'm looking at the tea leaves and I'm seeing a sticky end for the Bismarck here. I don't want to jump the gun. I don't want to offer spoilers, but I can see it not working out, right?
Well, let's wait and see. We don't want to kind of, spoil it too much. But all those comments about steering gear and stuff, I mean, it feels like it's tempting fate, doesn't it?
The Seekampfgruppe are off together. They go through the Fehmarn Belt.
Yes.
They're skirting the eastern edge of the Kiel Bay, joined by another destroyer, then through the Great Belt dividing Denmark. Now,
this is really narrow passage. I mean, this is an absolute network. This is one of Germany's big problems. Yeah. It's got this tiny stretch of the North Sea to the other side of the Denmark Peninsula, Schleswig-Holstein. Yeah. And then on the other side, on the eastern side, you've got a longer coastline, but it's all tied up in the network of the Baltic Sea, which is a series of islands and really narrow channels. And between southern Sweden and Norway and Denmark,
there's no going anywhere without letting everyone know what you're up to.
Precisely, that's my point.
So on 4 a.m. on the 20th of May, they get a signal that no British air reconnaissance has left Scapa Flow yet because of cloud. So they think they've got away with it. At dawn of the 20th, they come to a calm and empty North Sea.
Yes.
In order to get this going, they have to change all their other shipping, though, don't they? The lack of options that they have.
Yes.
It's not incredible. Like you've got Scapa Flow, Plymouth, Portsmouth, Chatham, Liverpool.
None of that.
None of that.
And also, Sweden's neutral.
Yeah.
So they can't stop the Swedish cruiser Gotland, which is now steaming on a parallel course. Gotland then sends routine signal to Stockholm. So the cat's out of the bag. But it's whether Sweden then chooses to use that and tell the Allies or not. Anyway, Lütjens immediately thinks, oh, God, okay.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm going to die anyway, so what? Anyway, the Seekampfgruppe is also spotted by a number of Norwegians as it passes, and not least Viggo Axelsen, who's a young ship's chandler on the coast there. And he's walking on the shore at Vesterveien in Kristiansand, which is on the southern. If you look at the bulge of southern Norway, it's just on the eastern
sort
side.
of dangling protuberance.
Protuberance.
I always
yeah.
think Norway does look vaguely droopy phallic, right?
Yeah.
But
it's just on the right hand side of the knob end.
Okay.
Okay.
We got there.
I decided to just spell it out. Anyway, so he's on that southern tip, and he's with his friends, and Axelsson knows that what he's seeing is significant. Yeah. It's a massive, great warship, and he worked for the resistance in the Oslo-Stavanger circuit.
Yeah.
So his job at the port and harbour gives him access to all sorts of, intelligence. So he now sends a coded message reporting the two large warships via Arnie Moen, who's a local bus driver. And Moen then gets in his bus and he passes them on to Gunvald Tomstad, who lives in Hella in Flekkefjord, which is 60 miles away. But this is moving pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So this is, whatever it is, early in the morning, dawn on the 20th of May. But by the evening, Axelsson's message of 12 words is with Tomstad, and Tomstad sends it on immediately, confirming what Denham's been able to report earlier. This is the proof.
This is one of those things where you wonder what the code is. Is it, 2 large Cornish pasties have been ordered from Greg's?
Jumbo size.
One jumbo size.
One jumbo pasty and one jumbo sausage roll. Just to distinguish the two. Yeah. Or you might have just said Bismarck's boys.
Or maybe B has gone by with PE. So we've talked about Lütjens, of course. On the other side of, I suppose, the other side of the roller. It's not the other side of the hill, is it? On the other side of the roller is Admiral Tovey, Admiral John Tovey.
And I think he's an admiral that most people, it's interesting, isn't it? The heroes of the Second World War, this Allied side, British side. We know all the generals. We know our Slims and Alexanders and Montes and everything. Yeah. But I think the admirals are Bruce Fraser, Charles Forbes. How many people have heard of Tovey? I don't know. He's pretty cool.
Well, he must be.
Well, all of them are. This is the point. The caliber of the senior admirals is just of a different level.
He's the commander-in-chief of the home fleet.
Yeah.
Although there's the odd dud in the army that's got to the top. So he's commander-in-chief of the home fleet at Scapa Flow, and he has his brand new flagship, King George V.
KGV.
Yeah, and he's taken over from Admiral Charles Forbes in November. He's come up from the Med, where he'd been ABC's second in command. And he's 56, so I'm 57. I feel like he's within reach as a person. He's not some 32-year-old blade who's like a dim and distant memory. He's got sharp features, Jim. He's got clear blue eyes. I mean, he's
got a slightly ratty face.
I was edging towards a resemblance there, but
no, you don't look anything like him.
Okay, thank you.
You don't look anything like him. You're much more handsome.
And he's the youngest son of 11 children.
Fancy that.
So they parcel him off to Dartmouth when he's 15.
Yeah, your surplus requirements. Dartmouth for you.
I mean, all right, Daddy. I mean, it's the oldest run family business. The second one
goes to the priesthood.
I mean, when you're down to the 11th and he's in the Navy.
Dartmouth, isn't it?
He fought at Jutland, commanding the destroyer HMS Onslow, and sunk the German light cruiser Wiesbaden. So this is an experienced naval officer who knows battle. Light raider, he's very religious and prays every morning and evening. He's a natural leader. He's got confidence pouring out of him. Transmits confidence to everybody.
Which I think is quite important to the senior commander.
I'd rather like that, wouldn't you?
Yeah. It's going to be fine. We're going to sink her.
Rather than, I just don't know what to do.
Yeah. Should we go through the Denmark Strait?
I can't make my mind up.
Yeah.
And he's served in all sorts of different sizes and types of ship in the different theatres.
He's done the Imperial Defence College, which is the marker of high command.
I mean, this is so interesting, coming to the Navy after all these years. We've done so many high-level British officers who've done a stint in India. Maybe they put down a rebellion somewhere, doing some imperial policing. Then they were at the Staff College. Yeah. Then they taught at the Staff College. And while they were there, they met the other people who become the building blocks of their career. As it comes, if you look at look, any of the top people we've talked about, and not just Army Group commanders, but people further down. This is the sort of path, and this is the naval version of that path, isn't it? Basically,
yeah.
That you serve all over different types of ship. You've worked your way up You've been to the Defence College,
Yep.
so you understand imperial strategy as a philosophy and a way of doing things.
But there's Staff College and there's the Imperial Defence College.
Yeah.
And the Imperial Defence College is the bit where you're really earmarked.
Yeah, you're absolutely having your card marked for the future.
Yeah.
And he's been naval assistant to the Second Sea Lord, so
He's swum a desk.
Yeah.
You know, he's done Mediterranean. He's done destroyers.
Yeah.
He's done big ships.
Yeah.
You know, he's the complete package basically.
he commanded Rodney in 1932. He was promoted to Rear Admiral in 35.
Yep.
Senior Officers War Course.
Yep.
Then he was briefly Naval ADC to the King.
Quite useful.
Yeah. The big difference, though, between the Army and the Navy is you do have tons of ship experience in a way that going on, you know, you're used to the sea, if nothing.
Well, and the other thing is, although the technology on a ship has changed, the principles haven't. So you know, things like new tanks and how you use tanks, that's entirely new.
Yeah.
Whereas battleships, aircraft carriers, cruisers, heavy cruisers, light cruisers, destroyers.
Aircraft carriers is where the novelty is. And where
It still is, but they still have them in the First World War, at the end of the First World War. So it's not like they haven't been using them.
Yeah.
But my point is they've got all this kit already.
Yeah,
So there's new tactics, there's developments, there's radio direction finding.
Yeah.
There's
not radar.
not radar.
No,
not yet.
definitely
It is,
not.
but
Not
actually,
yet.
it is by 1941.
It is by 1941 radar.
But they've got everything. You know, so they really are experienced in the kind of sort of in the warfare that they're going to be fighting, which is not the case for the army.
Yeah.
Where they're having to kind of adapt all the time, and indeed the RAF.
And also, as we keep saying, it's slightly an uneven struggle between the Navy and the Kriegsmarine, isn't it? And I suppose one of the crucial differences is that the German army has been chomping at the bit for the encounter that it delivers in 1940 in the West. Tovey, he has the courage of his convictions. He's stubborn. He's bloody minded. Yep. He doesn't kowtow. He hates yes men. He's well dressed. He likes his food and wine. Golf handicap of 4.
He's a chap.
Has he got time to play golf?
Of course he has.
Is there a link?
Everyone has time for
King
golf.
George V.
There's probably a little putting thing, isn't there?
He's driving balls off the back of thinking about gunnery,
knocking out dolphin with his golf balls. Yes, exactly.
And he's this important though. On King George V, on KGV, he's got a green telephone connected to the Special Shoreline to the Admiralty in London.
That, don't you?
Yeah. It's
I'm going to use the green telephone.
I'm going to the green phone.
Very well.
On the morning of the 21st of May, his secretary, Captain Paffard, and his chief of staff, Commodore Brind, the green phone rings, Jim.
Yep, to inform Tovey that Bismarck and Prince Eugen are on the move.
Yeah.
Tovey's not surprised. Nope. You know, they've been keeping tabs on Bismarck pretty much since...
Yeah.
Yeah, dot.
Well, they would, wouldn't they?
Of course. They've been looking at the activity in Brittany, seeing the increased enemy air traffic in the Baltic and North Sea, all of which points to something happening. And in fact, Tovey's already sent a cruiser, HMS Suffolk, to patrol the Denmark Straits, while her sister ship, HMS Norfolk, is on the way to relieve her.
Yeah.
But on the morning of the 21st of May, Tovey now orders an aerial reconnaissance of the Norwegian coast, which he would, and the fjords, and brings the fleet to short notice. And HMS Hood, which is the largest battle cruiser in the world, and actually in terms of length is the largest ship in the world, at 42,000 tons, plus the new battleship Prince of Wales and the sister ship, the King George V, plus new carrier Victorious, ready with 48 crated Hurricanes for Malta. Actually, Victorious is due to be meeting the battle cruiser, the Repulse, in the Clyde.
Yeah.
They're now all on standby for operations in the North Sea and the Atlantic against Bismarck.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, you're on notice.
Yeah.
Get ready, chaps.
And these big ships come with clutches of destroyers.
With also fairly chunky ships. I mean,
yeah. Well, these are all serious ships. But they also, they don't sail alone, do they? All the other supporting ships around them that go with it.
Yeah. There's the cruisers in Manchester and Birmingham. There's 5 armed trawlers in Iceland, Faroes Passage, who are on standby. The home fleet, he decides it's going to be divided into 2. There's going to be the Hood under Vice Admiral Lancelot Holland and the Prince of Wales in one group, and the KGV, King George V, and the battlecruiser Repulse in the other. So, fighter reconnaissance Spitfires are sent over to Norway, one towards Oslo and Skagerrak, and the other towards Bergen. So it's all systems go. They're all primed for this. They know the drill. Yeah. Literally the moment you press the go button, boom, off it all starts to kick into gear in pretty quick order.
And now Lütjens does exactly what he says he wants. I just picture him sighing all the time.
Yes. and looking a bit sad and wistful.
Oh, mein Gott. Oh.
Mein Gott.
Thinking of home. And he orders the whole Seekampfgruppe into the fjords. So he puts on a pause.
And don't forget, he's not a Nazi, because he's got an Imperial dagger, not a Nazi dagger.
Yes. Okay.
Whatever.
So at 9 o'clock in the morning on the 21st of May, they turn into Korsfjord up towards Bergen, and Bismarck then sails into the Grimstad Ford just south of Bergen. And so Prince Eugen is oiled, and new supplies are brought on.
Yes, so when you're saying you're oiled, I mean, you know what that means is you're getting a refuel. Fill up.
Refueling. Yeah.
Fill her up, will you?
It is peculiar that he should do this. I mean, why not? First of all, why hasn't he gone through the Kiel Canal and the North Sea? Why dither in this way? Or is he?
Why say we're not going to stop? We're just going to go for it, and then to change your mind, and then he goes in to refuel the Prince Eugen, but doesn't oil Bismarck.
Yeah,
even though you've kind of burnt through.
Even though you ought to. It is interesting though that because this is sort of Hitler hasn't been told about this. It's sort of semi-autonomous, isn't it? So there's a bit of that, isn't there? There's a kind
and
of,
also, they've had intelligence from Admiral Canaris, who's obviously the head of the Abwehr, the Wehrmacht's intelligence service, that clearly the Bismarck has been spotted.
Yeah.
And again, you can see Lütjens having another sigh and going, I still must go and see my Berg. So Bismarck lies up just to the south of Bergen. Because when you get to it, you go down the Korsfjord, and it's all kind of fairly sort of narrow, and then it sort of opens up into all these little kind of sub-fjords and little bays and bits and islands.
Tendrils.
Tendrils, that's the word. And anyway, so that Bismarck kind of anchors up in the and just sits there while Prince Eugen's getting oiled. Why wouldn't you? And it's absolutely completely part of the Royal Navy's DNA that every time you have a chance to oil, doesn't matter if you've only got rid of 2 litres.
Yeah, you do it. It's described as like a burglar loitering outside his local police station, isn't it? And this is the other thing. You're up against people who all want to be Nelson. That's the other thing. This is the other thing. You're up against a navy with the tradition of like
who want to be like Rodney and the Hood.
Exactly, not reckless aggression, but like aggression. Like they want to fight you and they want to destroy you.
It's absolutely part of it.
You're like picking your nose and admiring the Norwegian girls. It's very strange, isn't it?
Doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
And she's spotted, of course, inevitably. I mean, must have caused a slight element of mystification. You have Pilot Officer Suckling in a PR photo reconnaissance Spitfire, spots the 2 warships at 25,000 feet. And because they're not going anywhere, it's time to take pictures of them, of course.
Yes.
At 1:15 and zips back to...
21st of May. So this is 21st of May before they've got anywhere. They're still in the North Sea. They're on the Norwegian coast. They're stuck in a fjord.
Yeah.
I mean, or is he just thinking, if I do this, then perhaps I'll just cancel the whole thing?
Maybe there's a bit of that. There's a bit of like, they're going to call it off at some point. Surely.
Because don't forget, he's reluctant to go. He thinks it's a bad idea to go without the Scharnhorst.
Obviously, the Admiralty, these photographs, it's a cruise and a battleship. The Admiralty request a bombing attack that
night. They don't have any other battleships. It can be only one.
Exactly. Commander-in-Chief Coastal Commands, Air Marshal Sir Frederick Bowhill.
Another forgotten hero.
Gone. He wants his own assessment first. So Suckling flies down to London with the photos, gets in the car, drives through the blackout to the Air Ministry, where the assessment made at Wick is confirmed. That's a movie scene. He bangs the desk. There's your bloody photos.
Yeah, I mean, that's just ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, stupid. Not everyone's getting this right, are they? Right. But it's as if they're trying to cook us an excellent drama, these people, these minor players, are doing their bit to delivering an incredible drama.
But the interesting thing is that the Home Fleet, despite, I mean, obviously it's constantly in a state of flux. There's obviously new ships coming in, there's new crews, there's new recruits. So yes, there is this absolute hardcore of amazing experience, but there's also quite a lot of new.
Yeah.
And he's worried that the Swordfish crews are new on the carrier Victorious, which is also new.
Yeah.
He's worried that the crew on the KGV, King George V, is new.
Yeah.
Worried that the crew on the Prince of Wales is new.
Yeah.
Vickers Armstrong is still working on the guns.
Yes.
And actually they sail with her.
Yes.
So there's a bit that's kind of not certain and unsure and all the rest of it. But at the same time, you're right. He wants to be Nelson because they all do.
They all do.
So what the heck? We didn't get where we are today by being, timid.
No, exactly.
You just got to go for it.
Well, Tovey's in the KGV awaiting more news. Captain John Leach gathers the crew together, gives them a pep talk.
Yes.
Saying he hopes they'll acquit themselves well if and when battle came. Nelsonian, England expects. I mean, just this whole...
It's just there. Nelson's literally just hovering on everyone's shoulder, isn't he? Looking down.
Well, he's sort of like Obi-Wan Kenobi, isn't he? Like,
yeah, after he's been zapped. Yeah, sort of not in full focus.
Use the fleet.
do you think there's a sort of buzzing hum around him as well? England expects.
Obviously, there's a change in the weather, so there's stuff to be worried about, right? There's a mist rolling over the sea, then rain. They're worried that the Bismarck and the Eugen are going to get away undetected, where they're into the Atlantic. That's because that's what you're worried about here.
Of course,
right?
11 convoys either in operation or about to be in operation.
Because although they're confident they can deal with the Bismarck, it's how much damage she does before they do. And the Atlantic, as we've said in previous episodes, is enormous. It's vast. You've just sailed it,
I can vouch for that. I can vouch for it.
Vast emptiness.
Yeah, it's absolutely gigantic. And, from the bridge of the King George V, for example, on a clear day, you've got visibility of 15 miles around, probably.
Yeah.
And on a non-clear day, that is massively reduced. And on a misty day, it might be nothing.
The sea Kampfgruppers at Bergen. Prince Eugen oils. The destroyers do too. Bismarck doesn't. Which is just weird.
Despite having burned 1,000 tons since leaving Gothenhafen.
It's really weird.
I mean, why not?
And that's a lack of experience question, isn't it, really? They repaint both warships.
Yep. Get rid of their camo scheme, which I think is a shame.
Yep. They go grey to blend with the ocean and to make them more confusing to look at, so you might confuse them for a British ship. They don't really need to do that, though, because Bismarck is basically a great big target. Yeah. Isn't she? They've got pictures of Scapa Flow, of course, because it's a two-way traffic, this recce thing. Yeah. That there's, I think it's high-altitude Ju-88s maybe, isn't it, going over. And in the end, they adopt a Spitfire, don't they, with a pressurised cockpit to deal with that. Yeah. But Lütjens has a picture of what's going on at the other end of the North Sea.
And he sees no movement whatsoever, which isn't entirely true, but that's what they've reported.
That's what they've got in terms of intelligence. Yeah. So at 7:30, Bismarck sets sails again on anti-aircraft action stations. Because the other thing is to remember about these ships is they are basically anti-aircraft batteries.
Yes,
which is
as well.
We'll come to when we have some string bags, possibly. The destroyers and Prince Eugen, they all fall in line astern. A British Coastal Command signal is intercepted, warning all aircraft to look out for the German ships. So they know they're being hunted. Yeah. So I think you might be right. I think it might be you loiter a bit in the hope you get called off.
I don't know.
I would.
Yeah, I would too. But and also he hasn't got Nelson on his shoulder.
No, he hasn't. Exactly. And they're well out to sea when they see the glow of explosions over the Kohlsfjord, where Bomber Command or Coastal Command rather have turned up to attack the German force that's already moved on. Yeah. So the British have missed their window there. So at 5 o'clock in the morning on the 22nd May, Lütjens dismisses the destroyer force, ordering them to Trondheim.
Yep.
Again. Why?
It doesn't give any reason, any signals at all.
Yeah. So Bismarck and the Prince Eugen continue to head north.
The destroyers were never going to go and maraud in the sea. That's not what destroyers do.
But I know. But
the problem is if you have the destroyer force, then you've got another whole load of ships who've also got to be oiled, and you've got a limited amount of oiling. I mean, this is a sort of fatal flaw in the whole plan that they don't have any bases. They don't have an Iceland or Greenland or Halifax or,
Anyway, they're heading north. Prince Eugen and Bismarck, unescorted, are heading north alone.
And this prompts a decision for Tovey. Yeah. He doesn't really know what's going on. He knows he's there. He's not aware at this point that Bismarck's left. But he's got to kind of cover all bases. So at 9 o'clock on the 21st of May, dusk is settling over Scapa Flow on the Orkney Islands, just north of Scotland. And he makes his decision. He signals to Vice Admiral Holland on HMS Hood and tells him to take the Prince of Wales plus the destroyers Electra, Antony, Echo, Icarus, Achates and Antelope and head for Iceland to refuel and then take up position southwest of Ireland, covering both the Denmark Straits and the Faroes Island Gap. So this is a stretch of land. It's where the North Sea meets the Northern Atlantic, basically. Yeah. So just before midnight on the 21st of May, the destroyers slip through their mooring and they're followed by Hood and Prince of Wales just after, and this is a little bit after midnight. So now in the early hours of the 22nd of May, and the Hood has sailed her very first mission 21 years earlier from Scapa. And now it's heading out into the North Sea again, leading this force under Vice Admiral Lancelot Holland's flag. It couldn't be more tense.
We're going to get to Holland, aren't we? No relative?
No, sadly not. I wish. He's got Nelson on his shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, of all the senior naval officers who have, he definitely has, hasn't he? So where is the Bismarck? That's the big question. Tovey's gloomy on the morning of the 22nd of May because he had a lead and now it's sort of fizzling out, really, isn't it? They've sent 18 bombers from Wick the previous evening, but low cloud. They bombed blind.
That was the
raid that the Bismarck saw over its shoulder as she sailed away. So they don't know where the Sea Camp Gripper is, if she's still there or not. The weather's terrible. Oh, it's interesting, isn't it?
It's May.
For the time of year, really, really bad. Rain, there's a blanket of rain and low 10/10ths cloud over the North Sea. So she can't be found.
Yep.
Recce aircraft have gone out, but it's too difficult to see anything, so they've come back. And the worry is that the Bismarck, she's steaming flat out with Prince Eugen. She could be anywhere.
I mean, the Atlantic's fast. The North Sea's pretty big too.
And obviously, the thing that Tovey's worried about is his ships, because we talked about oiling being really, really important, and the Royal Navy's attitude that you oil whenever you possibly can. If you've got a fleet charging around, burning it up, looking for a needle in a haystack, and as you said, the human eye can see 15 miles from the bridge of a battleship, which is
significantly less on smaller ones.
Yeah, which isn't really much, is it? On the plus side, however, they're being canalised, the Sea Camp Gripper, to go to the Denmark Straits and the Iceland Faroes Gap. You know where they're going.
If they take that route.
If they take their route. So they're going to turn up there at some point.
Yeah.
And if they don't go that way, if they decide to go through the English Channel, in theory.
Well, no, if they go through the Faroes Islands.
No, but you know what I mean, right? Their options are limited. At some point, they're going to come into contact with the Royal Navy, one way or another.
Well, the reason for going over Iceland is you've got fewer aircraft. You know, you've got aircraft on Shetland, you've got aircraft on north of Scotland, and so you are theoretically within kind of aircraft striking distance if you go through the Faroes Iceland Gap, but less so if you're going around the north.
Yeah. But it's cloudy all day. Mid-morning, Coastal Command cancels all flights because flying's impossible.
Yep. But
Captain Henry St. John Fancourt, I mean, honestly, people aren't called St. John anymore, are they? No. He sends albacores up to Shetland, despite the weather, which are therefore 100 miles closer to Bergen. So Fancourt then asks his 2IC, Lieutenant Commander Geoffrey Rotherham, with an expert old-school navigator, whether he'd be willing to fly over to Bergen in this god-awful weather.
Yeah, and the point about Rotherham is that he's flying a desk at this point. So it's absolutely itching to get back in the saddle.
Yeah. So off he goes.
Of course he does.
In a Maryland, which as we've seen in the Malta story, did sterling recce work.
Yeah.
Noel Goddard, who's the leader of the target towing flight, volunteers.
I'll go.
I'll do it, sir. Absolutely. Okay. They take off at 4:30 in the afternoon in terrible weather. Twice they fly to under 100 feet, but still can't see the sea.
You see anything?
No. I think we better. Can we go back up again? This is awfully risky. They get to Bergen, and there's a gap in the cloud that appears at the key moment, and they get to Kostfjord, and there's nothing there.
Nada.
Immediately sends a message in case they're shot down. That's the spirit, isn't it? I mean,
we might be dead in 3 minutes, so I'm going to send it now.
I mean, honestly, they can't get hold of Coastal Command, so they call on the target towing wave instead, because it's a target towing aircraft. They get the message through.
Pass on the message, will you? Very well.
In this situation, they're in absolutely filthy weather, and you know they go down to 100 feet. How reliable is the altimeter actually in really difficult weather?
Well, ask Glenn Miller.
Remember, there we are. Sadly, we can't.
No.
But they get back to Shetland 3.25 hours later.
Absolutely amazing.
Incredible, but Tovey knows. It's bad. It's not good news, but Tovey now knows
that he's gone.
That they've sailed.
Anyway, so they're there. You also see our refuser to join Manchester and Birmingham, which are cruisers, they're light cruisers, in the Iceland Faroes Passage. And Repulse, which is supposed to be escorting the Victorious, the Malta, to join his flag north of Hebrides in the morning.
Now he's got some information. they can start steaming less sort of aimlessly, or not aimlessly is not the right word. They've got more of an idea of the picture.
Yes. But what of the Bismarck and the Prince Eugen?
This whole thing, this is like watching a mouse stick its head in a trap in slow motion, isn't it? Like reaching for the cheese. No, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
maybe not. Oh, actually, I do really like cheese. No, I'm not so sure about the cheese. Oh, actually, I really fancy a piece of cheese. It's a bit like that, isn't it? So, the trap's gone off. So what are the Bismarck and Prince Eugen doing?
They are continuing north, and Lütjens is still undecided to whether to go north or south of Iceland. I mean, here's a man who belt up, mate.
Yeah.
Anyway, his meteorologist is a chap called Dr. Externbrink. Of course he is.
Obviously, what one doesn't like to do when looking at history is seek out stereotypes. But by God, both sides are conforming right now. We've got St. John versus Dr. Externbrink.
Yeah, it's just superb. I want St. John's side.
I'm
with St. John.
Dr. Externbrink.
Anyway, so Dr. Externbrink.
He might as well be called Dr. Exterminate.
He advises him that the bad weather's unlikely to shift soon. But how he knows this is anyone knows because they've got a few weather ships, but that's it. So Lütjens decides to head directly to the Denmark Straits, i.e. over the northern, until you go over the top of Iceland and then down that gap to the west of Iceland, southeast of Greenland. It's a high-risk decision. He also makes a decision not to oil from the Weissenberg unless the weather suddenly lifts. So he wants to kind of make the most of it, make hay while the weather's low. But, he hasn't oiled in Korsfjord at Bergen. He's now not oiling from the Weissenberg. Prince Eugen has got limited range, and Bismarck's already burning, it was 1,000 litres before they even got to Bergen.
Yeah.
But he reckons it's better to make most of the weather and get well cleared of the Royal Navy. So he's, the flip side of that is you're not going to be going anywhere if you haven't got any fuel.
Yeah.
And also then, if you do start getting yourself short of fuel and you suddenly find yourself and you need to do some sort of dramatic sailing, you haven't got the wiggle room to do it.
No. They do have intelligence from air reconnaissance. They are listening to wireless traffic.
Yep.
This tells them, as far as they know, that the home fleet still hasn't sailed and is still at Scapa Flow.
Yeah. So they've been sending over reconnaissance planes over Scapa Flow, and what they haven't realised is that there's dummy boats there. What do you think the Lütjens would do if he heard that they'd sailed?
Gott in Himmel.
Big sigh.
Whatever the German for FML is.
I've made my plans. I have my affairs in order.
And I think it's quite interesting. They paint out the Nazi swastikas on the quarterdeck and the forecastle at this point. That sounds to me like a little bit of confidence trickling out of the old tank there, isn't it?
A little bit.
Maybe they won't attack us if we're not Nazis. The foggy weather continues all afternoon into the evening. And it's so thick that the ships can hardly see each other at various times. Yeah. Further faulty intelligence arrives. A signal from Group North that the Royal Navy Force H, based at Gibraltar, were now at sea, most likely headed for Crete. In fact, they're actually all still at Gibraltar.
I mean, how bad is their intelligence?
It's really not good. After all, this is a signature thing of Nazi intelligence, isn't it? All the times we talked about the Battle of Britain, how Beppo Schmidt...
They make these statements with enormous authority, but with absolutely no basis in reality whatsoever.
Pulling them out their arse. Yes. Yeah. 11 p.m. on the 22nd of May, they're now 200 miles northeast of Iceland, and Lütjens turns southwest into the northern stretch.
Now getting into the stretch
of the Denmark Straits.
And
at 4 o'clock in the morning, so 5 hours later on the 23rd of May, the two warships, they open their throttles and they're going at 27 knots now because you need to get through the Denmark Straits and out of them and out into the open Atlantic.
ASAP. But don't forget the night, it's light until about 1:15 in the morning.
Yeah.
And it's dark for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Right. So you've not really got...
They're super north here.
Yeah. I would have been steaming at 27 knots quite a lot earlier.
Yeah, but you haven't oiled.
No, I haven't oiled. I've not been oiled today, Jim. The discerning listener can...
You went past the Weissenberg.
And I didn't oil. The discerning listener can tell that I have not been oiled this morning. I may be getting well oiled later. Anyway, they're now approaching the most dangerous part of the breakout.
Will you be getting oiled from the Weissenberg?
Possibly. There's a narrow passage of straits. It's only 30 to 40 miles wide. And there's ice flows. They're dodging icebergs.
It's absolutely amazing. And they have these snow flurries, and then they have little patches of mist, and suddenly they emerge into this sort of crispy clear for a little bit. There's these ice flows all out. You know, everyone's out huddled in their kind of extra jackets and scarves and gloves and what have you. And you can imagine the tension on the Bismarck and the Prinz Eugen as they're doing this, because they know that this is the danger zone.
Yeah.
You know, they're in this narrow stretch. They've got very little room for manoeuvre. This is the moment.
And late in the afternoon of the 23rd, the weather starts to clear.
Yes.
Fog rolls away at the moment. The strait's narrow to between 3 and 10 miles. So they're really...
And suddenly it's crystal clear.
Yeah. So you actually, when it's this narrow and there's this much ice about, you can't barrel on as fast as possible. You've got to be pretty cautious, haven't you?
Yeah.
So
but they can see this big bank of fog over to the left as they're heading south, or over to port, I should say.
And it's this feeling they are on the edge of the world. This is the edge of the world, isn't it? Make no mistake. There's the distant mountains of Greenland, there's icebergs, and there's danger lurking. Captain Brinkman gets out his binos and looks at the wall of fog. And
he looks at this wall of fog and he goes, "If they're anywhere in these parts, they're in there." I mean, you can see how that would start to play on your nerves as this fog bank. And are they just suddenly going to see this warship kind of emerge out of the fog at any moment?
This is like something from a Viking saga.
Isn't it? It's just amazing.
Ice monsters and
and
danger lurking in the fog.
It really is.
Yeah.
And there are two cruisers there. There's the Suffolk and the Norfolk. And these are county-class heavy cruisers.
Yeah.
And as we know, the heaviness refers to the guns.
Yes, exactly. Yes, rather than displacement. So they're three-funneled. They 13,500 tons displacement.
Yep.
They're built for speed, not for protection. 630 feet long.
So compare that to, I think the Hood is 842 feet long.
Yeah.
So they're smaller.
Yeah. Still pretty big.
But it's still pretty big.
Yeah.
Top speed of 31.5 knots.
Yeah.
You know, that is seriously going.
Yeah. They can cut through the sea.
When you're going in knots, you're going faster than miles per hour.
Yes. Crew of 700. She has 8-inch dual gun turrets. She's got 6 quick-fire 4-inch guns.
That's 16, right?
Yeah.
Their armament changes, by the way. There's a up to 1939, and then there's up to 1941. What I'm not quite sure is at what stage in 1941 we are at the moment.
Right. Okay.
So I've taken a sort of mean line
in terms of a rearmament.
But anyway, the bottom line is that I'm happy to be corrected on this. But the 8-inch dual ton turrets, the 6 quick firing 4-inch and 2 times 2-pounder 8-barrel quad guns. I mean, 2 quadruple 50 cals. 2 21-inch quadruple torpedo tubes. I mean, that is a serious amount of firepower.
And they're part of the first cruiser squadron. And cruisers were laid down in the 20s, launched in the early 30s. And the idea is they're kind of a multi-purpose shipper cruiser. They can be used for, merchant shipping raiding. They can be used for escorting. They're essentially for this kind of thing as well.
Mm-hmm. They're supporting the big boys, basically.
Exactly.
That's the idea. They're
exactly.
Laid down in the 1920s, launched early 30s. Patrolling the Denmark Straits is not a popular job. You're just going up and down, you're not seeing anything. It's cold, it's rough, it's rough, it's web. You have these snow scores, you have the fog and all the rest of it. There's a brilliant passage in Ludovic Kennedy's book where he goes, the bows dug deep into the dark sides of the travelling water hills, flung the spray upwards where the polar wind caught it, hurled it over the ship, on deck and superstructure, and the faces of crouching men, froze it on steel and skin. One saw nothing but an agony of water, grey-green or blue-black, spume-tossed, marble-streaked, heard nothing but the thunder of the seas against the sides, the yell of the wind above. I mean, incredibly evocative, that is.
Yeah.
And obviously, having been an old hand now across the Atlantic, I can tell you that it is really noisy.
Is it just like that, Jim?
It is just like that.
It's just like that. There we are. The captain of HMS Suffolk is Captain Robert Ellis, and he's been ordered by Tovey to oil.
Always oil when he can.
He's fully oiled on the 18th of May after 10 days already at sea. So he's docked at Hvalfjord in Iceland. And the Suffolk is a better bet for this job than the Norfolk because she's been Arcticized, so prepared for this bad weather. So she's got an enclosed bridge.
Steam heated.
Just imagine...
Go on Suffolk, too.
Imagine the open bridge.
I
think I've just volunteered for the Suffolk.
And it's got radar. I think we can say radar now.
We can say radar. Norfolk is open bridge because she has not been Arcticized.
No.
She's commanded by Rear Admiral Frederick Wake Walker.
He's a good chap.
Who'd done jolly well at Dunkirk.
Very well.
Norfolk is now steaming to Ísafjörður on Iceland's northwest peninsula.
I'm quite tempted to go and visit that.
Really?
Isafjord.
Okay. Right on the... and there's a new radar station. That's why she's gone...
It's 5.5 hours by car from Reykjavik.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Wade Walker's a torpedo specialist. He's tall. He's an impressive cut of a fellow. He's rather dry and humorless. His hobbies are shooting, sketching, and looking for wild flowers.
Get on like a house on fire with Wavell. And Brooke.
Yeah. He likes hunting saxifrage and yomping around Iceland.
I'm leaving ship for a minute. I'm just going for a hunt for some saxifrage.
Did you find your saxifrage, sir?
Yes, I did actually.
Yes, I did actually. Yes. 10 o'clock in the morning on the 23rd of May, Suffolk arrives at Isafjord, and there's these cliffs of Vestfjordur looming above. Norfolk's already there. It's the team-up event of the century as these two East Anglia...
Yes.
It's like Norfolk and Suffolk are destined to sail together, right, aren't they?
Of course.
While flicking V's at one another.
And not bothering with Essex.
Not bothering with the Essex. Exactly right. At Cambridge, she can...
Cambridge, they could get.
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever.
They're ordered to proceed within radar distance of the pack ice opposite Vestfjordur and then patrol parallel in a southwest-northeast direction on each leg for 3 hours. Norfolk's to station herself 15 miles to the south in case the Germans have skirted around the edge of a minefield. Because it's mined as well. As well as ice flow, as well as how narrow it is, they've mined sections of it to deny it to the enemy. Mm-hmm. If nothing spotted by the following ships, the two ships are to rendezvous and check positions. And as you said, Suffolk has radar.
Range of 13 miles.
Yeah.
And that covers all sections except either side of the stern. So Suffolk heads off into the mist to begin the patrol. So, you know, Brinkman was right.
Yeah.
If it's going to be there, that's where they're going to be.
Yeah.
But they're under strict orders not to engage the Bismarck and the Prince Eugen if spotted, rather just to shadow them until the big boys turn up. So nothing happens, nothing spotted all afternoon. To the south, the cruisers, Manchester, Birmingham, Arethusa, and also Hood, Prince of Wales, KGV, King George V, and Repulse are all steaming to the south of Iceland. And pilots and observers of coastal command are scanning these seas from above between Iceland and Oakley. And then, 7:15 p.m., 23rd of May, able seaman Newell on the Suffolk on the starboard lookout on the bridge. He's been sweeping for, 50 times or something, just going back and forth.
Imagine the concentration required.
Yes. And then suddenly he spots something he's never, ever going to forget. It's the Bismarck. Black, massive, and it's emerging from a patch of mist on the starboard quarter. Not more than 7 miles away. It's nothing. Yes. Ship bearing green 140, he shouts. And then the Prince Eugen also appears. 2 ships bearing green 140. Suffolk now speeds up full speed to the fog bank. Alarm bells ringing, action station, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
2 very slow minutes as Bismarck came on at them, and everyone's waiting for the first salvos, but it never comes. They reach the fog. Suffolk's bridge is able to see the 2 blips pass from left to right, and when 13 miles ahead at limit of radar, Suffolk runs out of the fog and takes up position on Prince Eugen's wake.
I mean, what on earth is going on the Bismarck and the Prince Eugen?
Well, they've also been told, don't engage. Get out into the Atlantic.
Yeah, but
what if you suffer some damage?
This building is being powered by Nelson whirring in his grave right now. This is an extraordinary encounter, given Bismarck's superiority in terms of firepower.
Well, it's not as clear-cut as you might well point out. I mean, Norfolk's 15 miles away in fog, but picks up Suffolk's signal, so emerges from the fog to find Bismarck only 6 miles ahead, coming straight at her. Exactly. Run away. But of course, they've got Nelson on their shoulders, so they can't do that. So Norfolk manoeuvres to get back into the fog. Straight back in. Bismarck's gun fire in anger for the first time. So last.
Finally.
But it's a
shot across their bows, literally.
Warning. Don't mess with us.
Warning shot.
Yeah. Well, you're never going to hit first time unless it's complete fluke. So on the bridge of Norfolk, they can see the ripple of orange-brown puffs of smoke, heard the scream of shells coming over towards them. All miss, but one bounces off the sea and ricochets straight over the bridge. God, did you see that go by? By Jove. Anyway, 5 salvos fired before Norfolk gets into the mist. So that's a squeaky bum moment if ever there was one.
Yeah.
No casualties or hits. Both splinters spatter the sides, but gets away. So Suffolk has been sending out a stream of signals, but none have got through because of icing on the aerials. So Norfolk's sighting report is the first that's picked up by the Admiralty shore establishments and also by Tovey on the King George V.
Yeah.
And also by the Admiralty in London. So suddenly it's like, and everyone's like, okay, we're on.
It's into the matrix.
Yeah, day before, HMS Rodney and the troopship Britannic had left the Clyde, and they're now 800 miles to the south en route for a refit in Boston. Also picked up by Vice Admiral James Somerville of Force H, who is still at Gib.
Yeah.
And also by the cryptanalysts in Bismarck and Prince Eugen. So suddenly the cat is out of the bag. The chase is on.
The Germans know they've been seen because, after all, the Germans are reading Royal Navy ciphers at this point quite happily.
And which of the big warships, British warships, are closest now? You've got Suffolk and Norfolk, but who are the big boys that are coming towards them?
Hood. It's not quite brand new.
Not quite brand new?
Quite brand new.
Yeah, but she's a beauty.
But she's not quite brand new.
She's a beauty.
She might be
She's
beautiful,
really famous.
but
She's iconic.
Yeah, and
She's unsinkable.
Oh, no, Jim, you said it. Obviously, we're going to talk about what then happens to the Hood. It is quite interesting, isn't it, Jim? Because we are dislocated from the age of great battleships quite completely, I think, now. I think what the Hood represents to people at the time, I don't think we can relate to. Yes, the new aircraft carriers, the new generation of aircraft carriers, that have come online in the last couple of decades, are bigger, but they don't sit in our imagination the way the Royal Navy did 90 years ago in the interwar period. Where
No.
that was the expression of British power, wasn't it? It was battleships going around the world, being mighty,
Completely.
basically. And I don't think we're in touch with that anymore, are we?
I feel I stand a little bit taller when I think about HMS Hood and Warspite and the Repulse and the Rodney
Right. Okay.
and HMS Nelson. I mean, come on. I mean, they're so fantastic. They're so enormous and mean. But I mean,
Well, let's talk about her because she's the most famous ship in the world, basically.
she is the most famous ship in the world, bar none.
And she's known as the Mighty Hood. She's an Admiral class ship, isn't she?
Yes, she's not a battleship.
She's a cruiser.
Okay, nomenclature of warships.
I know. She's a warship. We can settle on her being
She's
a warship, right?
definitely. But she's a battle cruiser.
Oh, God.
I'll go.
But I mean, what's interesting, though, is she's one of a type. Is they were going to build a series of Admiral-class ships in the First World War, and they build the Hood, and then there's some stuff that's not quite right about it. So they're dropped as a program. So she's a one-off, which I think is one of the things that's quite interesting about her.
Yes, I agree with that. That is interesting.
Yeah, she's and there are lots of things I think that are symbolic of the Royal Navy in the Hood. She is symbolic of the Royal Navy, but in every way, in that this is a ship from a previous era, representative of a previous way of looking at naval power before really the maturation of air power in naval warfare, right? Which is what's happening in the Second World War as the Second World War is playing out. But she's from 1916. Her keel's laid down in 1916 in Clydebank in the John Brown yard. And there's been 4 Admiral Hoods in the Royal Navy.
It's a family tradition.
It's fantastic, isn't it? There's the Lord Hood who helped Admiral Rodney defeat the French to the West Indies. He sounds fantastic. His brother, Lord Bridport, who's with Admiral Howe on the glorious 1st of June. Admiral Sam Hood, who helped Nelson win at the Nile. All these guys sound tremendous.
Hooray.
And Admiral Horace Hood, who was killed in action at Jutland when the flagship Invincible blew up. So what are you going to do? You're going to name it Hood, aren't you? An Admiral-class ship.
And you're going to have it launched by Lady Hood.
Yeah, his widow. That last Admiral Hood's widow in August 1918. It had been a tricky development. So this is the interesting thing, is that at the time, she's the biggest warship ever built. She's even longer than Bismarck at 860 feet. But she's a little narrower in beam.
Narrower in the beam.
That's to make her go quicker, I guess.
So for those of you who've been to the Imperial War Museum, you'll notice that there's 2 huge guns outside the front.
Yeah.
And these are naval guns, and they're 15-inch guns. And I don't know about you, Al, but whenever I walk past them, I just go, flipping heck, they're enormous.
Yes.
Okay, so the Hood has 8 of those.
Yeah. They're very entertaining items for standing children next to the shells and going, look, the shells are bigger than you. Those guns, aren't they? That's their main function. And she's quick. She can do 32 knots.
Yeah, and that's going some. That is really quick.
She's using a ton of oil per half mile. That's a lot of oil.
Yeah, that's quite a lot.
That's quite a lot of oil, isn't it?
It's a Laura oil.
A Laura
Yep.
oil. She embodies naval power in that she's an old ship, really. She's being updated. It's got things.
Yeah, but it doesn't look an old ship. But no, I refer you back to your old point about it's only 20 years.
Yeah, I know.
Nothing.
I know, but when
nothing.
people are critical of the Royal Navy in the Second World War, they say, look, a lot of the rolling stock is beginning to look a little shabby, some of it.
But they're being updated.
And that's an issue with the Hood, isn't it? Because they try and update her armament, or her armour, rather. They update her armament and her armour. She needs more protection. Because after Jutland, the lesson is you're going to need armoured decks because these ships are vulnerable to indirect fire.
Well, yes, and we'll get on to the kind of her upgrading.
That issue, yeah.
The point about the Hood, of all the ships, she is the most famous because she's the biggest in the world.
Yeah.
She is the biggest warship in the world, and everyone knows her. And because she's this sort of unique design, and because she's very sleek, that beauty and elegance that Ted Briggs was talking about, gracefulness, sort of precedes her.
Yeah.
And so, understandably, the British use her as a means of soft power. It's kind of don't mess with us, but at the same time, come aboard the Hood and have a nice dinner.
Well, it's not that soft, is it?
No, it's not that soft, but it's sort of, let's do a world tour and go around and visit ports and all the rest of it and see people. And, she sews the flag to the empire around the world. And, she goes on cruises to Scandinavia and South America, to the Mediterranean, to the Pacific, to the old world and to the new. And in 1923-24, she undertakes this world tour in company with Repulse and 5 cruisers. So basically they're cruising around going, don't mess with us, we're the top dogs, basically.
Yeah.
But described as the most successful cruise by a squadron of warships in the history of sea power. They visit South Africa, Zanzibar, Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, the Pacific Islands, San Francisco, the Panama Canal, Jamaica, Canada, Newfoundland. Huge crowds every time she comes in. It fills dozens of column inches in the local press of wherever she goes. The mayor of San Francisco is totally overwhelmed by her and says, "We surrender our city unto you. We capitulate."
Yeah.
A girl in Melbourne records in her diary, she goes, "Every road and pathway was thick, and in many families were making a day of it, taking out all the children and hampers of food and bottles of beer. The bay was dotted with sailing boats. It was a wonderful sight, something I shall never forget. Everyone cheering and the kids running up and down and the sirens of all the ships in the harbour going off."
Look at that battleship, mate. She represents, as you say, British power, but it's not soft power, is it? This very much is, that's a nice Zanzibar you got there. Shame if something would have happened to it as this fleet turns up.
Except, Ernly Bradford, who writes a great book on the Siege of Malta, also read a biography of the Hood. He made the point that when the ship returned home, they'd strengthened friendships and revived alliances. They'd become a fireside story, and one ship, her photograph in thousands of homes, had become a legend. And obviously that's sort of slightly hyperbolic, but I don't think, not much really. I mean, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And you can still come up for sale in auction houses on menu cards from HMS Hood.
What's interesting, isn't it? This is a thing history can offer you, is a glimpse into another world, and another world where things really are quite different. Because now battleships don't steam round the world and are met to rapturous receptions. It's not a thing that happens anymore. Where is the power now? It's in nuclear weapons, and what you don't do, unless I suppose you're Kim Jong-un, you parade a rocket up the middle of, in a great parade, so everyone can see how powerful you are. What's the equivalent? There isn't an equivalent, is there?
Well, I suppose it's an aircraft. It's a Gerald Ford coming into port, isn't it?
I suppose so, but it doesn't have the same glamour.
They're flat decks. They're kind of boring, aren't they? Aircraft carriers. I mean, it's just not like Hood coming into town.
No.
And also the name and all sorts of stuff. I mean, American aircraft carriers are always called, something Gerald R.R. Ford or whatever. They're sort of complicated names these days. Whereas HMS Hood, you just...
Jim's into it.
You know where you stand.
Jim's into it. I'm trying to understand it. It's... There's our brief summary.
I just think it's absolutely fantastic. And I just know that if I was British in the 1920s and 30s, I would absolutely be totally proud and never doubt our naval dominance and all that kind of stuff if I saw that ship. I would be like Ken Briggs.
Which is, after all, the point of her is that she's symbolic, which maybe is part of the problem too, isn't it? Because she's quick, and it's at the cost of deck armour. We touched on the deck armour a moment ago, and she's due to have a refit and have her armour strengthened in the mid-1930s because she's getting on in the mid-30s. But then you have the Abyssinia crisis.
Yeah.
Then there's the Spanish Civil War. Then there's Munich, and that basically, you know, and the Royal Navy is very concerned about the Med, and basically you can't pull her out of service for the time required for the refit, in peacetime at least.
Because she's too important, you know.
She's too important, she's too crucial. And so there's a brief refit before the war to upgrade her anti-aircraft armament, which adds to her weight, so slows her down a little by 3,000 tonnes. That slows her down a little. But basically, come August of 39, the whole of the Royal Navy is getting ready. The deck lights are being put away, blackouts imposed, painted plain grey, and then they go to war. And I think we talked in the String Bags episode about how they're laying down keels for aircraft carriers in this period, and you know, 38, 39. You know, it's not just that there isn't time. It might be that there isn't the money, actually, that they need to spend it on new vessels.
Well, or there isn't the shipping space or the capacity or the priority is now aircraft carriers. You know, and don't forget there's also these other brand new battleships coming in.
Yeah. And this is going to happen when you're standing things up very quickly, isn't it? It's that things get prioritised, so things go to the back of the queue.
Hood is not designed to be super well armoured. You know, it's a cruiser. So it's supposed to provide immense firepower and speed, and there's lots of places for that. And actually, you know, the only way you're going to be hit in the deck is at extreme range, because at extreme range, you're lobbing your shell up, and then it's going to plunge onto you.
Yeah.
And so that's when you're vulnerable. Or, of course, you know, you're vulnerable to an aircraft attack from above. But when you're zooming at 32 knots, it's incredibly difficult to hit something moving that speed from thousands of feet up in the air. Yeah. So it's a calculated risk all the time. Every time you put something like the Hood into action, because you're assuming you can get close enough to the enemy without the enemy firing these kind of plunging shots. Because the moment you get closer, the arc of the trajectory of the shell is shallower.
It's flattened, yeah.
So it's not plunging onto the deck, it's skimming the deck if it does hit the deck at all. And so the moment of vulnerability, the range of vulnerability is actually pretty narrow, because for most of the time you're out of range, and it's only at extreme range that you're vulnerable. That's the bit you've got to kind of try and avoid. But you know, having weak deck armour is not necessarily an issue. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Everything's a compromise. Everything's a calculation.
Everything's a compromise. As in all warfare, right?
She's been at Merc El Kabir, hasn't she? And damaged as well along the way.
She's Vice Admiral Somerville's flag at Merc El Kabir.
Yeah. They're upgrading her constantly, and she's due a sort of full refit, isn't she? One's coming when, however, she is having to take part dealing with the Bismarck.
Well, HMS Repulse, which I think is a battle cruiser, is also, you know, it's on its way she's on her way to Boston to have a refit. Yeah. So they're sort of rotating it in and out. But right now, on the 23rd of May, 1941, she's doing what she's designed to do, which is engage the enemy with her immense firepower on the high seas. I mean, that's the whole point of it.
Yeah. Right. And now we come to the man in command, Admiral Holland, James.
Yes. Vice Admiral
Lancelot Holland as well. He's only took command 10 days earlier. He's 54. He's a gunnery specialist. So it's exactly who you might want on board. He has totally white hair. He's reserved at first, then warms up quickly. So many of these men are reserved at first, then warm up quickly with a dry sense of humour. I mean, very much a type, isn't it? He's very ambitious. I mean, in 1936, he loses his only son to polio, which is something he never gets over. He's been busy. As an admiral, he's been in the Med, where he's been under Somerville. He's taken 5 cruisers to attack the Italian battle fleet at Cape Spartivento. And the Italians run away on that occasion. But this is the point at which the Italian Navy is very much trying to not get sunk, mainly. That's its main activity. Since leaving Scapa Flow, he's exercised Hood and the Prince of Wales in range and inclination practice and signalled tactical intention. And they've been rehearsing for the way he wants to fight the battle. And the idea is, if they're together, the Hood and the Prince of Wales, when they run into the enemy, they'll engage.
Talk about the kind of, you know, the Obi-Wan Kenobi on his shoulder of Nelson.
He's got his what would Nelson do wristband on, hasn't he? And the idea is, if they're apart, they'll fire independently and report each other's fall of shot. They're not using radar because they don't want the enemy to see that they're using radar and alter course. And they want to engage the Bismarck and Prince Eugen. That's their prime objective. And as Nelson said, preparations have been made, and now all that was left was to wait for the great disposer of events. Marvellous stuff. I mean, it's stirring stuff.
Lancelot Holland is just gagging for it. I mean, as an admiral, this is all you want. You want to be tested. You want to kind of he's a gunnery expert. There's nothing he doesn't know about gunnery.
On board Prince of Wales is a gunnery officer, Lieutenant Esmond Knight, who's a stage actor before the war, but he's now a Royal Navy Volunteer Reserve officer, and he's excited but nervous. I lay on my bunk and tried to read, but the lines refused to register. I sat at the desk and tried to draw a funny picture for the ship's magazine, but the idea just would not come. I mean, that's absolute, eve of battle. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, he's absolutely cacking.
He can't come up with a funny picture. So there's 2 days of this unease.
No, he's that nervous.
And then on 4 minutes past 8, on the evening of the 23rd of May, the Hood picks up the Suffolk's reports, which we saw ping-ponging around between different receivers in the last episode. Frozen aerials at first and all this stuff. She's got through having de-iced her aerials.
Yeah.
Holland plots Bismarck's course relative to his little battle groups and orders speed to increase to 27 knots on a course of 295 degrees and a date with destiny. The way these battles play out is because you have to steam to one another. You have to find one another. They're just, the drama's baked in, right? One brigade lines up opposite another brigade and they've got to take a hill. They know where the hill is. This is like looking for the high ground, isn't it?
Well, the high ground is a more advantageous means of firing, isn't it? So you want to have your best opportunity whilst denying the best opportunity to your enemy. So it's not just a question of finding it, it's manoeuvring around. It's a bit like the sort of, beware the Hun and the sun. It's manoeuvring yourself around so you've got height and sun behind you. It's the exact same sort of principles. And actually the sun does come into this.
Well, Admiral Holland is plotting a course of 295 degrees, 27 knots. Because
he wants to intercept.
He wants battle brought, because he's looked at his what would Nelson do wristband, and what Nelson would do is go at him. So there's a mood of confidence on board the German warships, of course. And there must be a huge sense of relief when you actually come to fight. Yes, you're nervous to see the enemy. Yes, oh God, there he is. But actually, there must be a sense of relief. Finally, we get to fight. She has been damaged by Norfolk, so her forward radar has been smashed up. So she's blind going forwards. So Lütjens now signals to Prince Eugen to move ahead. Go on, move ahead then. Dropping a few knots to let her pass. He's on the bridge and he watches the cruiser inch up on his starboard quarter and signals, "From Admiral to Captain, you have a wonderful ship."
The image that comes into mind is that bit in the Battle of Britain film where they're all kind of, all the fighter pilots are having the lunch, and they're all very smug and making sort of, aren't we clever, sort of pleased with ourselves kind of comments.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of vibe, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Just a bit too pleased with themselves, perhaps?
Tiny bit too pleased with themselves. Now it's finally upon them, though. Bismarck's electronic steering briefly jams, and they're in danger of colliding. So, Brinkman avoids disaster. Due to his quick thinking, she pulls away on a 40-degree heel on the wheel. Lindeman's not on the bridge at the time, but the steering issue's fixed and they don't collide. I mean, that would have been anticlimactic.
Stopped in the water, Hood turns up, blasts them out of the sea.
Yeah, exactly. There we are, everybody.
The end.
But she's now in the lead. Prince Eugen's now in the lead with Bismarck astern and Norfolk and Suffolk chasing 14 miles
I'm not
behind.
trying to put too many arrows pointing at this, but Prince Eugen is now in the lead. And generally speaking, you would have the bigger ship would always be in the lead.
Yeah. And they're going flat out, 30 knots. So Norfolk and Suffolk are straining to keep up to. Tremendous vibration and shock of the water in the ships. The engines absolutely pummeling the frames of these ships. In Suffolk's chart house, the plotting officer, he can't keep his pencil and ruler steady because of the vibration of the movement of the ship. And I expect his nerves may be contributing to that feeling.
Had some small factor in this as well.
Yeah. And some of the German crew at this point, they're wondering why they aren't firing at the British cruisers. What's really interesting is that these rumours, these mutterings, reach Lindemann and Brinkman, who both say to their crews, orders are not to engage so we can reach the Atlantic in the best shape. I mean, that's an interesting thing to do, isn't it?
They're still in the Denmark Straits, don't forget.
Yeah.
This is the point.
Yeah.
They're in the Denmark Straits.
They're still in the Denmark Straits. If you're the Royal Navy, actually, this is all going kind of according to plan, isn't it? You've spotted them, despite the challenges of the fog, despite the challenges of the weather. You've spotted them. You've got a pair of cruisers chasing. You've got battleships coming to meet them.
But also, don't forget, they still think the home fleet has left Scapa Flow. So they think the only thing they've got is these 2 cruisers on their tail, who, if push comes to shove, they can deal with. But let's sprint on, use our superior speed, get clear of the Denmark Straits. Then we'll take a view. We'll either turn around and blast them, or we'll then speed on into the open Atlantic. That is our mission, is to destroy Allied merchant shipping. Because every time you engage, the potential is you're going to take on some damage. And QED, you've got the Bismarck's radars has been damaged in just a few little salvos between the Norfolk and Suffolk and her earlier. So it sort of proves the point, rather, I think.
Absolutely.
So but they're really confident they've got superior firepower, they're superior ships, they've got greater speed. They can see off these whippersnappers, basically.
Yeah. And the chief medical officer on the Prince Eugen, Commander Bush, says the feeling of absolute security was shared by every man in the ship's company, in our beautiful ship and in Bismarck too. The men felt safe. They think if they carry on with their foot down, they'll get away from the cruisers, and then there'll be a cover of night briefly to further escape. Yep. And there is some snow, there is some fog patches, but however, when the sky's clear, there they are, and they can't understand why the Suffolk and the Norfolk are keeping up. And it's because they don't know that Suffolk now has better radar than Bismarck and Prince Eugen had. You do wonder would the right thing been to do, fire a few shells at them to sort of scare them off and create enough of a gap, if that's the result you're after, if you're now mystified by being followed so efficiently.
Yes, I suppose so, but it's a bit tricky, isn't it? Because they're literally behind them. So, it's aft to stern to bow kind of shooting, which you could do because you got gun turrets firing that way, but I don't know.
But everyone's at action stations this entire time on the Bismarck, Suffolk, Norfolk. Prince Eugen, they're doing things slightly different. They're at second-degree readiness, which is quite interesting. He's obviously thought, no, we're just on the run here. We're not about to go to war.
We're in the lead, whatevs.
Yeah, exactly. On Suffolk, the men are on the bridge. They're having bully beef sandwiches and cocoa. On the Prince Eugen, it's soup and coffee. This is amazing, isn't it? This snow goose that follows.
Time and time again, we say, if this is Hollywood, you kind of think, that couldn't have happened.
Yeah, it's a bit corny.
Symbolism of it.
Yeah, flying over the forecastle, and the officers want to shoot and eat it. Of course they do.
But Captain Ellis says no, because he remembers the rhyme of the ancient mariner. And they're a suspicious lot, these naval types.
They certainly are. I mean, we've been talking about the ocean as this sort of implacable thing with ice monsters in it, that you can see why you might be superstitious, right? But they are actually, now what's happening is that they're getting closer to Hood and the Prince of Wales. By steaming as hard as they can away from Suffolk and Norfolk, they are actually steaming hard towards the approaching Holland's task force.
But they have this terrible moment at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And suddenly the officers on Suffolk's bridge are tricked by a mirage. Bismarck disappears in a rain flurry, then suddenly emerges and appears to be coming straight at them. And they're all thinking, what? It's about to turn tail. And then they realise that he's just a trick of the light.
That's amazing,
again, you're getting this sense, aren't you, of everyone on edge, everyone at readiness, at action stations, and this extraordinary seascape and landscape of ice flows, the distant mountains of Greenland, and all. I mean, crikey, just snow geese kind of flying over them. I don't know. It just feels very sort of dramatic, doesn't it?
Yeah. On King George V, Tovey wonders whether to signal Holland to allow Prince of Wales to go ahead, so a better protected vessel could draw fire first. Big ship should go first. Those are the rules. Tovey decides against that. It's not up to him to interfere in Holland's local dispositions, is it? It's not his role.
Can't micromanage.
Yeah, you don't it's the, let him get on with it. What would Nelson do? He wouldn't micromanage. Force H, meanwhile, because the Admiralty are following the course of Bismarck and Prince Eugen very closely, and they're worried that they are actually going to run into a convoy. Convoy WS8B, which is 2 days out of Clyde and heading to Gibraltar. That's a concern because, once they're in the Atlantic, that's always a possibility, isn't it? There's 11 convoys out, aren't there, in total, and that's what they're worried about. So Somerville then sends a signal to Force H.
Well, we should just remind people that Force H is under Vice Admiral James Somerville, based at Gibraltar, so quite a long way away from here. We're in the ice floes of the edge of the Arctic. But Force H is at the Mediterranean, and it's a sense, isn't it, of, I think, again, of the reach of the Royal Navy, but also the scale of this particular operation. You know, this is crossing the entire ocean.
The importance of the opportunity to deal with Bismarck. You know, this is a fantastic opportunity for the Royal Navy that she's actually turning up to fight. So he sends a signal. Somerville sends a signal to Force H to send them out into the Atlantic.
Yeah, and all the men have to come out of the bars of Gibraltar. They're in the pubs and whorehouses and all the rest of it. And it's like, hurry up, get back to your ship. We're sailing crack of dawn tomorrow. And everyone's like, all right, come on, let's go.
And that's 2,000 miles from the Denmark Straits. I mean, as a sort of literally all hands on deck, that's quite something, isn't it? And Force H's aircraft carrier are Royal, the Renown, which is a battle cruiser, destroyer force under Captain Vadym. And the plan is for them to be off Brest on the south coast of Ireland in 2 days' time. So steam on, steam hard, and get there on the 26th of May. Basically, it's belt and braces, isn't it, really?
But meanwhile, in the southern Denmark Straits, the showdown is coming. You know, Bismarck and Prince Eugen are heading south, clear of the Denmark Straits. Suffolk and Norfolk still shadowing them. But Hood and the Prince of Wales are surging north-northeast from Oakley direction. And as long as the Norfolk and Suffolk can keep track of Bismarck and Prince Eugen, there is going to be an interception.
Yeah.
So that night, the 23rd of May, the crews of Hood and the Prince of Wales are told that they should expect to engage the enemy the following morning. You know, so this is it. This is the moment they've all been trained for, but for which, of course, the majority haven't actually experienced. The men are going to feel the chill of fear in their bowels, a quickening beat of the heart, you know, the dull, dead weight of anxiety. Because most have only experienced routine drills and training and boredom and long stretches of seeing very little. And we've talked about Ludovic Kennedy, and he writes a fantastic passage in his book, Pursuit. He says, and everywhere men wondered, all but the very unimaginative, the very brave, how it might go for them, whether they would be mutilated, lose a hand or eye or testicles, whether they would die in agony or without knowing a thing about it. How they would acquit themselves, whether discover untapped reserves of courage and calm, or seeing men killed beside them, blood and splintered bone and the spilling out of friends' insides, they would break down, vomit, scream they couldn't go on, paralysed of terror. And they looked at one another, each alone in his cell, hoping, doubting that others felt the same. But none spoke, for all were ashamed of their fears.
That book is absolutely fantastic. And it's interesting because the prose is up to 11, but it's not. Somehow it's not corny and it's not melodramatic. He somehow avoids it, even though, you know.
And he's there.
Yeah, and he's there.
He was there.
Yeah.
He was escorting the Repulse and the Britannic over to Boston.
Yeah, incredible. So at 9 p.m. on the 23rd of May, the squadron is brought up to 27 knots in an increasingly rough sea. And it's rougher where they were than where the Bismarck was. So you've got great big rollers and a great big, you know, proper full-on ocean swell and
spray over the
bow,
over the bow.
An hour later, the squadron begins preparation for battle. So Esmond Knight goes to the stores. He's on the Prince of Wales. Goes to get his anti-flash gear, white gloves and a white hood to protect his face and hands from burns. In all the ships, officers and ratings went to the cabins and messes to put on clean underwear and socks. An old ritual in the Navy to prevent wounds from infections, because dirty clothes, you know, the cloth goes into a wound and you get an infection. You've got people writing last letters. Esmond Knight writes 2. He takes down his framed pictures and his other breakables, wraps them in bedclothes. These little rituals, eh? Tucks his trousers into his sea boots, puts on 2 sweaters and a scarf, and then goes to action defence position above the bridge. With tying a life belt around his chest, he puts on his tin hat, gets his Zeiss Spinos, which he bought in Austria before the war, around his neck. Then he sits down in a chair to try and compose himself, and he tries to think of other things. I mean, God. All the time, there was a persistent little voice crying out from every nook and cranny in the ship that we were to be in action before many hours, and that nothing could avoid it. Oh, my God.
I don't know about you. I'm feeling nervous.
No, you're right. We're there with them, aren't you? And it is this thing that you're steaming on towards whatever's going to happen.
Towards action, towards your fate, whatever that might be. Yeah. Survival, mutilation, a watery grave, you know.
And the other thing to consider in all of these ships is there's only a few people who actually got an eye on what's going on. Everyone else is at their station inside the ship. You know, if you're in a gun turret, you can't see what's going on, can you? You're just concentrating on operating the gun turret, on your role in the turret. If you're in the engine room, you'll never see what's, you know. So there's this very peculiar thing that someone like Esmond Knight has got eyes on what's happening. The vast majority of people on the Prince of Wales don't. So you're steaming towards your fate that's like the thing you don't ever get to look at, or you know what I mean, Jim? It's a very, very peculiar state of affairs. Anyway, she goes to action stations. The squadron goes to action stations. The men close up. Watertight doors are closed. Ammunition hoists are tested. Comms are checked. Guns elevated and trained. In the gun turrets, you've got the civilian technicians from Vickers.
Still got civvy technicians.
I know. Unbelievable, isn't it?
On the Prince of Wales you have anyway.
Yeah.
They're thinking, you know, I didn't sign up for this.
No, absolutely. I'm here to help you get the guns working, then I'm getting off. Thank you very much. In the galleys, fires are put out. The cooks damp down the fires in the galleys. In the sick bay and wardroom, instruments are sterilised and morphine prepared.
I mean, the other thing, I know we've been banging on a lot about Nelson, but I mean, you know, it's no different from the preparation before Trafalgar.
No, why would it be?
Exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that sort of sense of continuity, it's just amazing. So signals from Norfolk and Suffolk continue to stream in. And at midnight, the enemy is estimated to be 100 miles away. So on that current course, the squadron would cross Bismarck's track 60 miles ahead at around 2:30 a.m. And this would bar the Germans any passage into the Atlantic, which is sort of the whole point. But would also mean going into action at high speed in the darkest part of the night and with all the confusion and, you know, an obvious uncertainty that would come along with that. The alternative was to turn north towards Bismarck right now, and at closing speeds of 50 knots, that meant the two forces probably coming together at about 2 a.m. So sunset is at 1:51 a.m. because we're up in the Arctic.
Yeah.
You know, and it's May, late May. We're getting close to midsummer.
Yeah.
So that would leave Bismarck and Prince Eugen silhouetted against the afterglow of the sunset, while the British ships could approach in, you know, what is effectively darkness.
Great.
So that is what you want.
Yeah.
You know, that is Holland's plan. So at 12 minutes past midnight on the 24th of May, Admiral Holland signals his squadron to turn 45 degrees to starboard. So 5 minutes later, after Ellis's signal time of 0009, so 9 minutes past midnight, reports Bismarck is hidden in a snowstorm and that Suffolk had manoeuvred from south-southwest to due south. Holland then turns a further 15 degrees to the north in case Bismarck has also turned due south.
Right.
This is the problem when the enemy's got a vote and you're trying to second guess the direction, because, you know, a ship can change direction anytime it likes. So you're guessing, you're just trying to put your mind in your enemy's mind and try and second guess where he's going to go.
So Holland orders battle ensigns to be hoisted and warns his ships to be prepared to engage any time from 1:40 a.m. just before sunset. And the plan is for the Prince of Wales and Hood to engage Bismarck while Suffolk and Norfolk take on Prince Eugen.
It's a brilliant, you know, that is the perfect plan.
Perfect sense,
that is the perfect plan. And you can't really see how that's going to fail.
Yeah.
Holland sees his chance. This is a chance. He's got 4 ships to 2. He can sandwich them. He can make the most of the setting sun. He's got the advantage of surprise. He's got collectively superior firepower. This is the dreamboat, right? I mean, this is exactly what you want. And he's got superior experience, gunnery, and he's got Nelson's fighting spirit.
However, Suffolk, who has radar, loses contact at 28 past midnight. As you said, these are the vagaries, the problems, the challenges of keeping chase in the vast expanse of the Atlantic. So they're blind. Holland sends a signal saying if they haven't sighted the enemy by 2:10 a.m., he'll turn his squadron south until the cruisers regained contact. So that means if Bismarck has maintained a southerly course, the Prince of Wales and Hood would still be south of her.
But because while they want the most advantage opportunity to engage, trumping that is the risk of losing, you know, of avoiding the risk of losing them.
Yeah.
This is a real hammer blow because just at the moment that they, you know, it's gotcha, they lose Bismarck.
Yeah. So half an hour passes, then another, So an hour and a half, 90 minutes are gone. There's still no news of Bismarck and Prince Eugen. They're gone. They've vanished. They disappeared into the vastness of the Atlantic.
Holland is going, yeah. You know, he's absolutely cursing his bad luck.
And he orders to turn to a new course at 200 degrees on a new south-southwest heading, but orders the accompanying destroyers to carry on sweeping north just in case. This is amazing, isn't it? It's all going perfectly tickety-boo, and you know exactly what you're going to do, and then in an instant, you've got to start again. Yeah, and in actual fact, Holland is leading his ships on a perfect course to intercept, and he's only 20 miles away when at 1:41 a.m., German ships alter a little to the west in line with the Greenland ice pack. They kink a little way west, and they pass within 10 miles of Holland's destroyers, but visibility is only 3 to 5 miles.
Vagaries of weather. What can you do?
Yeah, exactly.
What you gonna do?
And the ships have been at accident stations for 4 hours now. And obviously keeping men keyed up for that kind of period of time is a difficult business, isn't it? You know, that it's going to wear people out, wear their nerves out and all this sort of stuff. 2.5 hours, basically, after she lost contact with the German ships, Suffolk signals that she's now back in touch with them. She's got Bismarck on her radar screen. She's 35 miles to the northwest of Hood, with Hood and Prince Wales just ahead. So now on an almost parallel course, but slightly divergent. So battle is now almost certain. But in all this confusion, Holland has lost his advantageous position that he had originally. So instead of attacking head on, he's going to have to converge at an angle, and not as quickly as he'd like.
Which, after all, is exactly how Nelson attacked at Trafalgar.
Yes, of course. Though things are slightly different in terms of what you can do with your gunnery. And at 3:20 a.m., Suffolk then signals that the Germans have made a further adjustment to the west, which is going to mean that Hood is vulnerable for longer to these long-range plunging shells that we talked about when we discussed her armament at the start of the episode. So there's a bigger window of opportunity for Bismarck to drop shells into Hood's superstructure. That window is open for longer. Meanwhile, on Prince Eugen at 3 o'clock in the morning, at 3 a.m., Prince Eugen's radio room pick up their first report from Suffolk, because they're listening out for what the Royal Navy are doing. And he's aware that he's not shaken off. Lütjens really understands, oh no, Gott in Himmel, that he's not shaken off Suffolk or Norfolk.
They're still there.
Still there. Oh, God. And then at 5 in the morning, when's dawn? I mean, dawn has come and gone because it's about an hour and a half of night, isn't it?
Oh, it's come and gone. Yeah.
They can hear the sound of screws of fast-moving, fast-approaching battleships. The ships are converging at 5 o'clock in the morning. They're only 15 miles apart. So, Jim, I think you should take us through what Admiral Holland does. I think it's only appropriate.
So it's 10 minutes past 5 in the morning of the 24th of May. Vice Admiral Holland signals instant readiness for action. So on the Prince of Wales, Captain John Leach broadcast to the ship's company they would be in action within 15 minutes. And the ship's chaplain says, blasted out through the gangways, across the bridge, over into the gun turrets and all the rest of it. He says,
O Lord, thou knowest how busy we must be today. If we forget thee, do not thou forget us. Chaplain out.
It's very important when you're doing religious stuff that you say lots of thous, even though no one talks like that.
Even though no one has talked like that ever.
Meanwhile, on the bridges of Hood and the Prince of Wales, all the officers are now. They're all training their binoculars. Captain Leach gives a young 18-year-old lad, Knocker White, a pair of binos and a spare coat and goes, come on, young scamp, up to the crow's nest with you. The minutes pass, interminably. The ships are still surging forward. The agony of the sea is spraying over the bows of these warships as they're going towards battle. On the bridge, no one is speaking. It is now 7:37 a.m. on the morning of the 24th of May, 1941. And then from above, enemy in sight! It's the moment. Binoculars are all trained in unison while 14-inch guns start swinging around in their turrets. And slowly but surely, twin masts appear on the horizon. And the range is actually now 17 miles. And on the bridge of the Prince of Wales, one man, Chief Yeoman of Signal, is watching the Hood with telescope as a series of flags run up. And he goes, from Hood, sir, shouted over the wind. Blue 4, alter course, 40 degrees to starboard. This is a big alteration, and it means that the Hood and the Prince of Wales would be attacking at a very fine angle, like Nelson was when he cut into the middle of the Spanish line and at Trafalgar.
Yeah, perpendicular course, yeah.
Yes, at sort of, 90 degrees, basically. But what it means is that they won't be able to bring their after turrets to bear. So you have two forward turrets on you have the bridge, the superstructure, you have the turrets staggered on top of each other at the front, and then you have the ones at the back doing the same thing. That means half your main guns won't be able to fire until you've turned to broadside. But this is about getting there quickly. And the reason he's doing it this way is so that you can minimize the time when you're vulnerable to the long range fire. This plunging shots. The moments of vulnerability. So anyway, the alarm bells are rung on Bismarck and Prinz Eugen just after 5 a.m., a series of long trills. Hurried activity, racing to action stations. In the gunnery control position, binos are being strained. And Lieutenant Paul Schmallenbach, who is a second gunnery officer, grabs the Handbook of Foreign Navies. And after looking at the book and the approaching warships, he said, "The one on the right is more squat than the one on the left and has a tremendous bow wave. The one on the left is obviously a more modern vessel. I think the one on the right is the Hood." And everyone goes, "The Hood?" They can't believe it.
Yeah.
Gott in Himmel. But Schmallenbach is absolutely convinced, and he says to the officer next to him, he said, "I will bet a bottle of champagne that it is the Hood." And immediately orders are given to load the guns with high explosive shells and impact fuses. And meanwhile, on HMS Hood, Admiral Holland is on the bridge and signals the orders, "Stand by to fire, target left-hand ship." The battle is now but moments away out. It's 5:39 a.m. on Saturday, the 24th of May, 1941, and we're back on the Bismarck, and Admiral Gunther Lütjens is about to have another sigh, because he's very shocked to realise he's up against the Hood, which means he's going to have to fight. He might have his orders to kind of avoid it, but he hasn't got any choice in the matter. So he orders his two warships to alter course to maintain the range, and so turns to starboard on a new course of 280 degrees. This, he hopes, will give him a bit more time to sort of go, okay, right, what's the situation here? Exactly who's attacking him? And slow down the rate of closure, which is exactly what Admiral Holland does not want to do. He wants to get in as close as possible, as quickly as possible. So 5:44 a.m. on Hood, the distance is called out at 14 miles. And at 5:46 a.m., Holland turns his two ships 40 degrees again towards the enemy, i.e. to 300 degrees, in an effort to maintain his interception.
Yeah.
So what this means is that although the Hood and the Prince of Wales are presenting a much narrower target, it also means they're still going to be prevented from using their rear guns.
Although they have superior firepower, they can't use it all. So you have the paradox of the Hood being a bigger and nastier prospect in terms of its gunnery, but she can't use all of it. Immediately, you're fighting with your arm behind your back, right?
So what's the thinking here?
Well, he wants to close faster and reduce the window of opportunity, the zone of vulnerability for the plunging indirect fire from Bismarck. Because after all, he knows his decks aren't as strongly armoured as they might be. And he knows actually that even with an armoured deck, plunging fire is extremely, extremely difficult to do anything about. A battleship is extremely vulnerable to that. And he wants to get in closer and then turn to a parallel course so he can fire his broadside, bring all of his guns to bear. But in order to do that, there is this gap, isn't there?
The zone of vulnerability until you get to the zone of invulnerability. And the zone of vulnerability is actually quite a small zone. I mean, it's not long when you're traveling at 28 knots.
Yeah, but it's there nonetheless. I do rather like the idea of having a zone of invulnerability. Maybe that's something I should work on. It's having my own personal zone of invulnerability.
Yeah, I wonder.
But this is all to do with the thickness of side armour, the thinness of the top armour. Extreme ranges. With your guns at extreme elevation, you're lobbing the shells so they drop in, basically, at great velocity as well. It's the other thing.
So they're coming down at high art, so yeah. they're plunging. At a kind of sort of 40 to 45 degrees, that's basically the point.
And they can hit the ship, miss the side armour. They can get into its soft parts, basically. This is understood by everyone. This is why Holland is doing what he's doing. It's because he knows about this. It's not some thing of the moment. The Admiralty are keenly aware of this, which is why he's doing what he's doing.
But it's worth, I think, just reminding people how you go from the zone of invulnerability to the zone of vulnerability, because as you close, so the trajectory is flatter. It's not coming in at 40, 45 degrees. It's coming in at kind of not quite horizontal, but a much flatter arc. So as it hits the deck, it's less likely to penetrate deeply.
Yeah.
It might even skim off it.
Yeah.
So think of it like a sort of skimming pebble.
It's 5:52 a.m. The range is now 25,000 yards. That's 12 miles. And at this moment, Captain Carr on the Hood gives the order, open fire.
It's done with minimum amount of fuss.
But this is extremely unfussy. Shoot. Given the size of these guns, the understatement of it.
When you have it, but between the open fire and shoot orders, you have this little moment, and you have this rather ridiculous clang of the fire gong tinkling across, which is the warning that the shooting's about to happen. So there is literally just a sort of a second or two, while everyone waits with bated breath for the guns to fire, and when the guns blast, the blast of it knocks men almost senseless. It's huge, thick clouds of acrid cordite.
Yeah, baby.
And cordite burns off very dark smoke, so it sort of envelops the ship. And 4 shells, each weighing 1 ton, hurtle out of the muzzles at 1,600 miles an hour. I mean, the whole ship rocks backwards with the recoil.
Well, I suspect she slows down momentarily for a couple of knots, with the force of the guns firing. And then the Prince of Wales fires as well. Esmond Knight is deafened by a crash of the forward turrets. And then, moments later, Bismarck replies. This is one of these things, isn't it? The sound can't go anything like as quickly as the sight of the guns 12 miles away. So you get this orange ripple.
See on the distance.
Yeah. You see the ripples, and the sound is to follow. And it's a 50-second gap, isn't it, between the shells leaving and the shells arriving. So you've got time to count, you've got time to anticipate, you've got time to want to crawl up inside yourself. I mean, it's all there, isn't it? You see the orange, and then you count 50 seconds, and they're counting the seconds. They're literally counting the seconds.
And in the final seconds, you can hear it.
Yeah.
You can hear it coming. People always say it sort of sounds like a train coming towards you, or the sort of ripping of fabric.
Yeah.
This sort of this sort of just
this
sort of huge force of kinetic energy sort of hurtling towards you, a ton of steel.
Yeah.
Just
tearing the sky open. And what they're doing is they're tracking these shots. They're looking at where they fall. The gunnery officer then tries to correct, and he's got to calculate in motion of the ship, changing range. These are complex calculations, aren't they, that they're engaged in. This is much more difficult than static gunnery, say, by an artillery battery on land. This isn't like putting in a stonk. This is much more complex.
It's really difficult to hit.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to hit.
Yeah.
It just is. On the bridge of the Prinz Eugen, a petty officer sounds absolutely terrified. He goes, "He's fired!" And Captain Brinkman says, "Keep calm, ma'am. Of course he's fired. Now let's see what comes of it." Suddenly, moments later, there's the sucking of air, and great geysers erupt all round the Prinz Eugen. Holland is intending on firing at Bismarck, but he assumes the battleship would be ahead and hasn't realised that the Prinz Eugen has taken the lead overnight because of the DIS radar on the Bismarck. And of course, that distance is very hard to tell one from the other. They both got very similar superstructures, and particularly German warships, they're all built on a similar design. So although they have different functions and different scales, the proportions are all kind of pretty much the same, and you can't really tell.
Yeah.
And it's just worth reminding that Holland's plan had been to catch them unawares at night with the sunset hiding them and with all the advantages, but it hasn't worked out. Then they would have had 18 guns against 8, but now they have 10 guns against 8 and about to be reduced to 9 because one of the Prince of Wales' 2 forward gun turrets developed a defect after the first salvo.
Yeah. With the lads from Vickers on hand, going, "Oh, no, now what?"
Yeah, but you're not going to change that in a minute, are you?
No, you're not.
We can sort it out, but it's going to take a little while.
Yeah, and in response to this, Bismarck and Prinz Eugen are both firing at the Hood. They're not confused about what they're doing, and haven't picked the wrong target, and this gives them their gunnery an advantage. So not only have they evened the odds for themselves, but they're firing on the right ship, and The British are sailing into the wind. So the Germans have what's called the weather gauge. The British are sailing into the wind. So their range-finding equipment is being drenched by sea spray and interfered with.
Small margins.
So it's these margins. The margins are all coming into play here, aren't they?
And in the speed of the changing of all the courses that Bismarck has been doing and Prince Eugen have been doing, and all the excitement and the closing in and all the rest of it, Holland hasn't issued orders to Norfolk and Suffolk to engage because suddenly the moment to attack has all happened very quickly. And I think to be honest, I think he just forgets. Yeah. I think he forgets to do it. But anyway, that's the plan. I mean, I can't think of another reason, but they are not part of this battle.
Yeah. And we can never know, of course. There's no war diary to look at here. You can only go off what's seen to happen from kind of here on in, right? And Hood's second salvo lands really close to Prince Eugen, but Brinkman orders the helmsman to steer towards them because he's reasoning they're never going to fall in the same place twice, these shells. So if we steer towards where the guns fall, we'll be all right, And then Prince Eugen's second salvo is much closer to the Hood and actually strikes the Hood. And there's jubilation on the Prince Eugen, and there's some worry on Norfolk, who spots that the Hood has been hit. On the Hood's bridge, a fire is reported, which is a shell burst has gone off in the 4-inch anti-aircraft ammo. Things are cooking off on the Hood. The crew start putting out the fire when a second and maybe a third shell strike, killing some of the crew in the aircraft hangar. There's a able seaman Tilburn, who we will come to, is struck by a part of a body on the back of the legs. This is the moment that Holland's really got to make a decision, isn't it? So he does.
Yep.
And no matter the risk, he knows he's got to get into a parallel course, position of a parallel course, so he can fire broadside. The sailing forwards with half his gunnery at his disposal isn't going to deliver the result he needs. He's got to come in alongside the Bismarck. Captain Leach has also recognised the Bismarck, so realises they've been firing at the wrong ship and fires his subsequent salvos at Bismarck. At the same time, at 5:54 a.m, Lütjens orders a turn. So he's reading the battle just as effectively as anybody, back to 200 degrees. So he will come across the top of the British warships rather than allow them to draw parallel. So they're like a T. So he's basically making sure that he maintains his advantage. So he's still firing broadsides and they can't. And so a minute later, 5:55, Holland also orders his ships to turn to port to negate that effect that Lütjens has tried to bring about. And on the bridge of the Prince of Wales, Chief Yeoman reports the latest signal. From Hood, sir, 2 blue. Turn 20 degrees to port together. So at last, everyone's going to be able to deliver a broadside on both of these ships. The two ships begin to turn.
At this moment, as they're turning to get their first broadside in, that Bismarck's next salvo hurtle towards Hood. For the 5th time, the officers on the bridge of Bismarck see Hood disappear behind a wall of near misses and splashes. I don't think they've hit, but then one of the shells doesn't hit the water, but instead plunges onto her deck between the centre and the stern. So this is behind the superstructure, in the middle of the back. So 3/4 of the way down the length of the ship. So it's come over the top and it's plunged down just as between the kind of 3rd and 4th quarters of the ship. And this is at its moment of vulnerability, its zone of vulnerability, not its zone of invulnerability. So it goes straight down, penetrates below the waterline, goes through several decks, explodes, which then detonates an ammunition, some big shells, which causes a massive counter explosion as it strikes more ammunition stores, which triggers an almost instant and massive subsequent explosion.
Yeah.
And the Germans and British alike who see this are absolutely incredulous to see this huge column of flame heap hundreds of feet up into the air from the Hood centre. It's like a one witness on Norfolk reckons it's 4 times higher than Hood's main mast. Another reports that it nearly touched the sky. Esmond Knight reckoned it looked like a long, pale red tongue. And the flame is followed by a sort of mushroom-shaped cloud of smoke, yellowish, like the smoke from a gorse fire, someone calls it. And again, the explosion is seemingly soundless to those who see it, but suddenly bits of Hood hurtling through the air, including parts of a 15-inch gun turret, When you think of the weight of that, the main mast and a main derrick. Esmond Knight thinks that the most famous ship in the world is blowing up like a huge Chinese Christmas cracker.
Yeah.
You cannot overstate the total shock. I mean, it's literally everyone who's watching is just going,
What?
yeah, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, what are we witnessing here?
Yeah. On the hood is signalman Ted Briggs, and he hears, and he's on the bridge, he hears orders to switch to emergency steering before the ship basically lurches sideways like a collapsing house. And on the boat deck, we met Bob Tilburn a moment ago, able seaman Bob Tilburn. He sees a man beside him killed, another's torn open by a splinter with his guts spewing out. Tilburn goes over to the side to be sick, but already the deck is level with the water. And he sees around him other people just carrying on, watching dials, adjusting levers, as if it's not happening. Everyone's drilled to just carry on, after all. To witnesses, to the people seeing it from the other ships, they literally don't believe it. And the smoke clears to show Hood with a broken back and the bow and the stern pointing up towards the sky, split in the middle, and the two halves are sort of beginning to sink on their own. And the two forward turrets fire a last salvo because obviously the electronics are all fusing and go off, or the short circuits, or someone shouts shoot because they're on autopilot, in the chaos. Whatever. And to the Germans, it looks like a sort of final act of defiance. It's a final shaking fist. Meanwhile, Prince of Wales has to go hard starboard to avoid the wreckage.
Yes, and there's this incredible moment, Al, where the two halves of the hood are pointing upwards, and the Prince of Wales goes in front of it.
Yeah.
So it's just this totally surreal thing, because it looks like the two parts of the hood are coming out of the top of the decks of the Prince of Wales. And it's just, Ted Briggs is in the water, desperately swimming away. He sees the hood pointing skyward, swims for his life, turns back, and she's gone. Just gone. It's all happened in minutes. A couple of minutes.
Yeah, truly incredible. And there's a third man, Midshipman Bill Dundas, who's 18, who's escaped by climbing through a window on the bridge. Bob Tilburn gets away because he ditches his helmet, his duffel coat, but as he's swimming away, a mast smacks down beside him, and wires tangle his boot, and he's dragged under. And somehow he has the presence of mind to grab a knife, find his knife, cut his boot off, and swim to the surface. All three find wreckage to cling to and then swim towards each other and hang on to each other. The Prince of Wales was steaming on hard behind the hood. It's all part of the drama here, because the battle isn't over. Even as Bill, Bob, and Ted hang on to the wreckage they can grab. On steams the battle. Bismarck fires another salvo at the Prince of Wales. Prince of Wales has fired a sixth salvo at Bismarck, and he sees that he has actually hit Bismarck. Although he's straddled, he's bracketed her quite nicely, but he's actually hit the ship. Then a 15-inch shell goes clean through Prince of Wales's bridge. And this is a mark of the fact that the ranges are closing, aren't they? So rather than it plunging, it's coming at enough of an angle to go clean through it. Explodes as it exits, killing everyone except the captain himself and the chief yeoman of signals and the navigating officer who's wounded. The same shell almost kills Esmond Knight, who had been packing his possessions away not that long ago. And he hears the shell coming, like this great sound of a rushing cyclone, and he's knocked unconscious. And he wakes up, comes to with the weight of a dead man on him, and screams and smell of blood. "Get me out of here," he cries as loud as he could, and he's pulled clear. And he's been blinded in one eye in this strike. This is extraordinary, isn't it? Because this battle, it's gone down in a matter of 2-3 minutes. This battle's only been going 12 minutes. All this drama.
Yeah. And it's after this shell that Captain Leach pulls away.
Yeah, that's when he might.
This is unequal. Well, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So she's been hit by 4 of Bismarck's shells and 3 of Prinz Eugen's. The compass platform, the echo sounding gear, radar office, aircraft recovery crane, and 4 secondary armament directors all been wrecked. Some splinters that have blinded Esmond Knight have also splintered a hot water tank, which pours water onto survivors, scalds them to death. 1 15-inch and 2 8-inch shells have hit the ship below the waterline, letting in 400 tons of water. So after firing 18 salvos, the Prince of Wales makes smoke and disengage southeast. And what you do making smoke is just trying to sort of hide yourself.
Yeah.
It is now 6:13 a.m. When the crews of Bismarck and Prinz Eugen are told that the Prince of Wales has broken off action, there's much cheering and shouting, and in both ships a special issue of chocolate and cigarettes is issued. But Lütjens has signalled to Prinz Eugen to report hits and casualties, and the reply is none.
But in fact, Hood had hit the Prinz Eugen. A giant fragment of shell was found at the base of her funnel, which is, in a way that Hood was incredibly unlucky. Prinz Eugen had been incredibly fortunate.
Yeah.
And Bismarck has received 3 hits. So one has caused damage on the main deck. The second struck amidships, so it's in the middle, and penetrating the side beneath the armoured belt, and destroyed one of the dynamos, put number 2 boiler room and 2 boilers out of action, wounded 5 men, and caused flooding. And the third, which is the worst damage, has struck the port bow. So this is at the front on the left-hand side, just about the level of the waterline, penetrating 2 oil tanks.
Oh.
And come out the starboard side without exploding. So seawater is now coming in and contaminating the oil tanks, but also knocking out suction valves and cutting off 1,000 tons of oil from the engine. Topping up in Korsfjord, or the Weissen, whatever that ship was called, it's starting to look like a big error.
Always oil whenever you can. I've always said that, James. I mean, I remember when we first met, I asked you if you oiled regularly, and you said, yes, I do oil regularly.
Yeah, and you and I were very well oiled yesterday.
One thing's interesting here, isn't it, is this gunnery. This gunnery is really difficult. 18 salvos fired by the Prince of Wales. It's hard. This is really, really hard. And also, a lot of these shells aren't going off. There's a peculiar thing, isn't it, that shells striking ships and not exploding, going on through. The extent to which this is a crapshoot, that luck is such a factor, that, that good fortune can come your way or not. The Hood is unfortunate, as you point out. Prinz Eugen is fortunate. And the Bismarck, in a way, is fortunate because, had that shell that went through the oil tank gone off in the oil tanks, you'd have a very different story, wouldn't you? You've had a proper oil fire on board, and that'd be much more difficult to deal with than simply losing some fuel. It's just all so bloody difficult, isn't it? All of this. It's really hard.
Yeah, but make no mistake, but Bismarck is has got big problems on it.
Yes, I know. And it could be worse.
So Captain Lindemann, who is the captain of the Bismarck, wants to finish off the Prince of Wales. There's Brinkman on the Prinz Eugen, there's Lindemann on but obviously Lütjens is overall in charge. But Lütjens just wants to get away, get out of the Denmark Straits, get into the Atlantic ASAP. He's struck gold by getting the Hood. Let's not kind of
quit while we're ahead, I think is the expression.
But from that hit at the port bow, they're now 2 to 3 degrees and a list to port of 9 degrees. And it means that the starboard prop, the right-hand prop propeller, is starting to come out of the water. And oil is still gushing into the sea. So a reduction of speed is reduced, not by very much, only to 28 knots. Right at that moment, it's not quite clear how bad the situation is. It's not good, but can the problems be corked up? Can they be made good? Who knows at this stage? But, you've got a problem on your hands. So Prinz Eugen is once more taking the lead, and divers and engineers try to stop the damage on Bismarck. And after great difficulty made worse by the speed of travel, the divers do manage to make temporary repairs and pump out water so that the bows rise once more and it comes back onto a kind of, it stops listing. But with 1 boiler room out, and that's from the second shell, max speed reduced, a trail of oil and loss of fuel, Bismarck can't carry out the mission. That's over.
Yep.
It's not going to engaging any merchant vessels now. What it really needs to do is head back with all speed to port for very urgent repairs. And their one functioning battleship is effectively now out of action.
Yeah.
And it can't go back to Germany because that would mean going back through the Denmark Straits, which is canalizing it. So that's not going to happen. But it can go to Saint-Nazaire, which is 600 miles further south than the distance they would have to go back to Trondheim, for example, in Norway. It means further distance, but you've got the safety valve of heading through wider seas by going southwards into the Atlantic. But you've got a big problem.
Yeah. So in a way, looking at this purely in terms of the Hood going down, it's so dramatic, it's so symbolic, but actually it's not a slam dunk win for the Kriegsmarine at all. Because actually their main battleship is lame now and vulnerable, and their options have been written out of the story, haven't they? He has no choice now, Lütjens. He could dither before. He could decide which side of Iceland to sail through. He could make some decisions. He had some agency, but he doesn't anymore. That's because actually, although he's destroyed the Hood, Prince of Wales and Hood have done for him. is the truth.
Well, put him in an extremely vulnerable position.
Basically, he's having to put his head into the noose anyway. The noose is definitely tightening around his neck now.
It's a bit like a bullfight. You know, you have the guys on the horses first with the little spears to sort of stab the bull and kind of, you know, make it weaker so that then the toreador can come in and finish it.
Yeah. Yes, our toreador is going to be a string bag, though, isn't it? That's the thing. Now, we've 3 survivors. I mean, it's absolutely incredible that only 3 men make it. And they're on their makeshift rafts. Ted Briggs, Bill Dundas, Bob Tilburn. At the moment, Lütjens makes his mind up. They're soaking. They're freezing cold. Don't forget where we are. Briggs is starting to get hypothermic, and he's really struggling to hold on to the others. Eventually, they can't hang on any longer, and they begin to drift apart. Briggs feels sleep overcoming him, which is, you know, the hypothermia, isn't it? And urges the other 2 to sing and start singing Roll Out the Barrel and yelling at the other 2 to join him. I mean, dear God. I mean, this is desperate stuff. A Sunderland flying boat, because there are aircraft watching this battle while it occurs, is the other thing. Spotting the shot, just keeping tabs on what's going on. Sunderland flies over but doesn't spot them. Dundas suggests that they should tell the stories of how they managed to escape the Hood, but neither Briggs nor Tilburn have got the energy to keep going. Dundas tries singing again, but at this point Briggs feels a sleepy mist come over him.
That's not good, is it?
That is not good.
So meanwhile, HMS Electra, which is one of the destroyers, surges forward to pick up the survivors. You remember they'd been up to the north a little bit, sweeping in case, you know, Bismarck's turned around or something. You know, they're expecting to find hundreds, but they see no one. And it's now well after 9 a.m. You know, so 3 hours since this happened. And then suddenly they hear shouts, and it's Dundas. So you know, Briggs and Tilburn have a lot to thank midshipman Dundas. It's aged only 18.4, I think. And they see the 3 men part, but still clinging to their floats. And only Dundas has managed to sit up enough to be seen. So now all 3 men, you know, they sort of delve deep into their inner soul and strength and kind of manage to get some last bit of energy. And as Electra reaches Ted Briggs, a rope is thrown down to him and someone shouts down to him, warning him to grab it and not let go. And he says, "You bet your bloody life I won't." And all 3 are successfully pulled aboard and wrapped up in blankets and given rum. And, you know, and the Electra and the other destroyers continue searching for a while, but they find nothing. And with a heavy heart, we turned away as we could do no more, noted Jack Taylor, who was on the Electra and who was the person whose quote we started this episode with. So in all, 1,415 men, including Admiral Lancelot Holland, were killed. So that's 94 officers and 1,321 ratings. You know, and it was and will remain the single worst loss of life for the Royal Navy in the war. 9 a.m, just after 9, the search is called off and destroyers return to Iceland. And by this time, Bismarck and Prince Eugen are already 100 miles to the south. The Prince of Wales, Norfolk and Suffolk still doggedly in pursuit.
It is absolutely staggering, isn't it? That this thing that when ships go down, you lose so many people. That's 2 battalions, isn't it, basically? The loss of the Hood is announced. I mean, it's interesting this. The news comes out pretty much straight away there because there's no hiding this, is there? Because the Germans are going to crow about it. So there's an Admiralty communique at 9 o'clock that evening. So 12 hours later at the end of the day. British naval forces intercepted early this morning off the coast of Greenland German naval forces, including the battleship Bismarck. The enemy were attacked, and during the ensuing action, HMS Hood, Captain R. Carr, CBE, RN, wearing the flag of Vice Admiral L.E. Holland, CB, received an unlucky hit in the magazine and blew up. The Bismarck has received damage. The pursuit of the enemy continues. It is feared there will be few survivors from HMS Hood. Given everything we were talking about at the start of the last episode about what Hood represents, how she is a symbol as much as she is a battlefield.
It's devastating, and it's devastating to a degree that's out of all proportion to the loss of a single warship. I mean, it feels like a piece of Britain has been ripped asunder. You know, it's just been, you know, people just cannot believe it. And it's not just in Britain. You know, it's in the Dominions, it's around her empire, you know, around the Commonwealth. It is jaw-dropping news.
Yeah.
That a ship, you know, all those people that have seen it, they just can't believe what has happened. You know that sort of feeling you get when a sort of terrible disaster, like a Malaysian Airlines flight disappears into the sea or something gets shot down, and you just have that real shock, don't you?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. And of course, the situation is made considerably worse by the fact that, it's not going very well on Crete either.
Yeah, and it's a year on from Dunkirk, really. It's as if the bad news just hasn't stopped. It's a year since Dunkirk, salvation of the BEF. It's a disaster, right? It must have felt like unrelenting bad news. And this is the kind of, for the Navy now, the Army's been losing. The Air Force has hung on in there.
Well, yeah, it's kind of one thing, isn't it, losing the Army, because that's the Army and, we're always small. But the Navy, that's our pride. That's what we do really well.
Well, you remember when we talked about the Blitz, how we talked about, the attack on London is like this a blow to imperial prestige because London is the imperial centre. It's of that category, this, isn't it? It's in that bracket in terms of prestige and damage. And, that's a tough thing for the Admiral to admit, isn't it? You can imagine it was a very grey day there. We've talked a lot about Nelson, the ghost of Nelson, Obi-Wan Kenobi, like, what would Nelson do? This is really why Holland got himself into this situation, isn't it? That he chased battle in the way he did.
Yes, I mean, he's in this really, really advantageous position, and then they lose contact with the Bismarck. And that's what absolutely froze everything. But his job absolutely is to engage the Bismarck and Prinz Eugen. That's his mission.
Yeah.
And it is very much part of the DNA in the Royal Navy that to be aggressive and that you take the shot. And yes, it's a risk. Trafalgar's a risk. The Battle of the Nile is a risk. Cape St. Vincent is a risk. Yeah. But that's factored in, and they know they've got the capacity to be able to take the risk, because it's not going to be the end of the Navy if they lose one of their ships. It's going to be a tragedy for all involved.
Yeah.
And that risk is sort of parcelled in. And although the situation changes, he's trusting to superior gunnery and to the fact that the time he's in the zone of vulnerability, exposed to plunging shots, you're weighing it all up. What are the percentages of that happening? It's probably less than 5%.
Yeah.
Steve Prince might say I'm being a bit generous, but okay, maybe 10%. But I mean, those are still pretty good odds. And the fact that it plunges where it plunges and detonates ammunition stores, that's just the rub of the green. That's just unlucky. It might easily not have done in the same way that, the shot didn't penetrate Prinz Eugen. It's just, so I think one shouldn't be too critical of Holland. That's my point. He has received quite a lot of criticism. Why did he do this? He didn't have to, all the rest of it. But, that is their job. That's what they're supposed to do. Yeah,
exactly. And it's a calculated risk that didn't work out. It's the thing, because sometimes they don't, right? This is it. I mean, it's a shocking, absolutely shocking, the loss of life on Hood. But again, everyone knows that that's the deal, right? Don't they? Actually, I mean, they could have cut further south and then turned more bow to bow, and they were trying to do that, and it was literally at the very moment when he was turning to port. Echoing what Lütjens was doing,
the parallel,
to get parallel that they were struck. It's terrible.
But it's that margin, it's that moment where actually he's sort of got the worst of both worlds, because he can't bring their broadsides to bear, and nor are they presenting at that moment the minimum lateral target. So it's just. And also, the two ships are only sort of about 800 yards apart, which is not very, it's obviously what's that, sort of half a mile?
Half a mile, yeah.
This is sort of standard practice in the Admiralty fighting instructions, but in this situation offers, just for this moment, doesn't offer a great advantage. The thinking behind it is if you're two ships close together, you effectively become one giant fighting machine. But obviously, once Hood's been sunk, it ensures that because they're close, Bismarck and Prinz Eugen can almost immediately shift to the Prince of Wales.
They've got his range. They know where he is. Yeah,
because it's almost the same position.
Yeah.
But obviously, they do that with near fatal consequences. But while Hood is unlucky, Prince of Wales is lucky and gets away with it.
Yeah.
We touched on the response around the world, but needless to say, the Germans absolutely crowing. I mean, Goebbels goes into full kind of PR mode on this one, sort of milking it for all it's worth. But again, you're kind of slightly in danger of being hoisted by your own petard if you do that too hard. I mean, the Germans are guilty time and time again of kind of over-egging their aces and, their triumphs. And then when they come a cropper, it's all a bit kind of red faces all round, isn't it? So.
But the Bismarck is lame, limping on to try to get to dry dock and repair in France. And don't forget, Force H is heading in that direction. We dispatched Force H earlier. And
KGV, King George V with Tovey, that's coming into play.
It's coming into play. And of course, there's no guarantee that they're going to catch her, but she's lame. She's staggering on. Range of options and choices are being very, very much diminished.
Her range
Yeah.
has been cut down because she didn't oil.
She didn't oil. Always
She's
oil.
lost oil.
The moral of the story is always oil when you get the opportunity. Anyway, thanks everyone for listening. Join us in the second part of this series with the pursuit of the Bismarck into the Atlantic. I've got to say, Jim, I'm really, really loving this run of Navy stories. Even though I think it's been very manful of us to grasp a tragic story of Royal Naval defeat at the same time, and do some bad news for the British. Which I mean,
Every time I think about the Hood, I'm filled with a sense of regret.
oh God.
It's been hard. But I tell you what I am excited about. I'm excited about writing this book I'm going to be doing on the Atlantic with all this.
Yeah. And also,
Heck, what fun.
Also, join us for the second part of the series when you're going to find out exactly if Bismarck gets its just desserts.
And then we're going to do a wash-up episode, aren't we? We can talk about the Belle of the Hood.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone. Don't forget to become a Patreon, where you can get all this ad-free with extra stuff. And Officer Class, of course, on the Apple Podcast channel. We've mentioned the Ludovic Kennedy book, Pursuit, a couple of times in this episode, or in this series. If you do join the Patreon, then I've read the chapter relevant to the episode we've just done. And it's the most fantastic, gripping prose that I read basically in one breath, because that's the only way to approach the text. And that's on the Patreon for you to listen to get the eyewitness eyeballs on the event. Thanks for listening, everyone. Cheerio.
Cheerio.